Chapter 190. Apart from the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution, everyone who witnessed this scene was dumbstruck and astonished. Who was Song Lai? He was a prominent figure in the martial world. He was the sect master of a sect with over 10,000 disciples. He was an existence that everyone revered. Who was Chu Yang? Before he challenged Song Lai, how many people present had heard of his name? Their statuses weren't even on the same level. However, Chu Yang actually blocked Song Lai's thunderstrike in front of everyone. Moreover, he was evenly matched with Song Lai. What powerful strength! That punch earlier contained the strength of 9 elephants. Is this for real? That Chu Yang actually possesses the strength of 9 elephants. TSK. The disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution couldn't help but feel disdain. The strength of 9 elephants was nothing. They were truly ignorant. Li Hao, Zhong Tian, Ji Jingcheng, and many other disciples of the martial institution despised all the family heads, elders, and sect masters. The strength of 9 elephants. Such powerful strength. Ha! Many thoughts flashed through Chu Yang's mind. When he spoke with such a tone, the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution burst into laughter. The astonished crowd was dumbfounded by Chu Yang's mocking tone and the laughter of the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. Wasn't the strength of 9 elephants shocking enough? I have been underestimated by Song Lai. It's only because he is severely injured that I thought I could defeat him with the strength of 9 elephant. Chu Yang was puzzled. Song Lai was the sect master of the Azure Dragon School. He had already made a name for himself many years ago. Moreover, he had already reached the 4th level of the Chi Soul realm, for elephants. Even if he was injured, it shouldn't be limited to this. Song Lai, if you weren't a body cultivator, you might have had the chance to severely injure me. Unfortunately, you will have to pay the price. You will regret it for the rest of your life. Who was arrogant? You were the arrogant one. Hearing Chu Yang's indifferent voice, everyone's minds buzzed. Chu Yang had already taken out 4 Yarrow cores. The Blood Eagle's Yarrow core, the Iron Scorpion's Yarrow core, the 4-winged Bat's Yarrow core, and the Wind Tiger's Yarrow core. He immediately swallowed all 4 Yarrow cores, causing everyone's eyes to pop out of their sockets. Who would dare to recklessly devour Yarrow cores? Were they not afraid of death? Chu Yang still had 2 Yarrow cores in his hands. One was from the Tree Demon, and the other was from the Phantom Demon Wolf. The first 4 types of Yarrow cores were all at the first LV of the Chi Soul realm. The Tree Demon's Yarrow core was at the second LV of the Chi Soul realm. The Illusory Demon Wolf's Yarrow core was at the 4th LV of the Chi Soul realm. This Illusion Demon Wolf's Monster core was obtained by Li Yu and Nangong Ying as practice. In order to kill this Illusion Demon Wolf, the 2 of them had almost died. Of course, these beast cores were obtained from the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. When Song Lai saw this shocking scene, he sneered. His sneer made Chu Yang feel strange. You killed my son, Song Hongtu, and obtained the Overlord Fist from him. Am I right? Chu Yang's eyelids twitched. So what? What a joke. Song Lai had an even more sarcastic expression. You actually want to use my cultivation technique to defeat me? Are you dreaming? Just this. Chu Yang's expression didn't change. Different things will have different results in different people's hands. He pointed at Song Lai. I am a prodigy, and you are trash. Do you think it will be the same? It was fine to brag about himself being a prodigy, but who would dare to say that Song Lai was trash? Even Li Yu and Nangong Ying from the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution didn't dare. They didn't have the qualifications to do so. However, when Chu Yang said it, many people were speechless for a moment. After all, Chu Yang was too demonic. As for killing your son had bad intentions and was courting death. While speaking, Chu Yang's killing intent surged out. But you chopped off one of my father's arms and made him look more like my brother. You should also die. Song Lai was humiliated by the words of a junior. He was so angry that the veins on his face were throbbing. I will also cut off one of your arms later so that the 3 of you, father and son, will all be one-armed and become a legend. Song Lai's face instantly turned sinister when the hatred for his son's death was triggered. I have to say, Song Lai, you are very stupid. I am very grateful for the time you gave me to absorb most of the demonic essence from the beast cause. His physical body was frantically devouring the demonic essence. The surging power gave Chu Yang a trace of confidence. So what? Song Lai laughed sinisterly. Do you think that your cultivation technique has no flaws? That I didn't set up any traps? Little bastard. Chapter 191. There was a flaw in the cultivation technique. The Coiling Dragon Martial Institution's disciples couldn't help but have a change in expression, especially Chu Yang and Chu Fei. Devouring Beast Cause was one of Chu Yang's trump cards, but Chu Yang had already been tricked. Chu Yang was also shocked. Devouring Beast Cause to temper the body was extremely dangerous and ridiculous. Song Lai should be referring to this, but if it was this, Chu Yang had already overcome it. Song Lai, you are trash. A trash trying to scheme against a genius? Fool, dream on. Boom. The air around Chu Yang exploded. Then, a huge whirlpool was formed. Behind him, the phantoms of 4 demonic beasts appeared. They seemed to be roaring and struggling. It seemed as if they wanted to break out of Chu Yang's body. The scene was horrifying. Song Lai had been observing Chu Yang's movements. When he saw that Chu Yang didn't have any signs of demonic transformation, Song Lai's eyes flashed with a trace of chilling light. This kid must not be left alive. I will definitely grind his bones to ashes and take revenge for my son. Song Lai only had this thought in his mind. The power displayed by Chu Yang's punch just now, as well as his decisiveness in swallowing 4 pills in succession, made Song Lai feel a great threat from this 16 or 17-year-old boy. There had never been a rising star that Song Lai paid so much attention to. It made him feel uneasy, like a fishbone in his throat and a blade in his back. According to the time, Chu Yang had just obtained the Overlord Fist, not even half a month. But he had already cultivated the power of 9 elephants, which was half of Song Lai's strength. Song Lai was cultivating the Overlord technique, the complete Overlord technique. It wasn't the so-called Overlord Fist that he had modified and designed as a trap. Only he knew how much he had suffered in the past 10 years, and what kind of trials he had endured. Moreover, he had only just managed to cultivate the strength of 1 dragon and 8 elephants. But this little bastard, in just half a month, was equivalent to 10 years of effort. 10 years of cultivation, how shocking and terrifying was that? If he was allowed to continue cultivating like this, it was only a matter of time before Song Lai died without a complete corpse. At this moment, he was even rejoicing. Fortunately, this little bastard was too impatient. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. At this moment, from Song Lai's point of view, it was a good thing that he was injured. It was an extremely good thing that a monster had voluntarily sent himself to his death. Boom. Boom. The 2 of them suddenly made their moves. Their figures leaped up and soared into the sky like cannonballs. Dense killing intent gushed out in all directions. In the blink of an eye, the 2 of them exchanged dozens of punches. Every single strike was earth-shattering and caused thousands of shockwaves. Flaming fist. Raging flames burning the heavens. Boundless sea of fire. Song Lai's attacks were like a violent storm. A flying dragon and 8 elephants appeared behind him. The dragon roared and the elephant trumpeted. Every attack had the power to shatter the sky. His power was unparalleled, and each of his attacks swept up a boundless tide of flames. The space around him seemed to be burning. It contained the 4 symbols' true essence, but it mainly relied on strength, intending to crush Chu Yang. At this moment, Song Lai's power was like an invincible flaming war god in the eyes of the crowd. Chu Yang had swallowed 3 monster cores before, and his power had risen to the strength of 1 dragon and 3 elephants. Now that he had 4 monster cores, his power had skyrocketed from the strength of 3 elephants to the strength of 1 dragon and 6 elephant. 3rd refinement stage, 3 times the power, that was the strength of 4 dragons and 8 elephants. In the face of Song Lai's terrifying pressure, Chu Yang also displayed all the skills he had learned to the limit at this moment, and put them all together. Great 1,000 leaf hands. 18 flood dragon strikes. Wind Killer Sword. Overlord Fist. The power of metal, fire, and earth, the sword heart Skyfire, the blade crystal, and the earth water all erupted. Chu Yang was like a raging flood. After absorbing the power of the monster cause, every part of his body seemed to explode with crushing power. Chu Yang was naturally not afraid of strength, but he was wary of Song Lai's four symbols' true essence. After all, his opponent was an expert of the fourth layer of the Chi Soul realm. The difference in their levels was too great. No matter how arrogant he was, it would be useless. Victory or defeat could be decided in this instant, and... Chapter 192. Boom. 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 A tongue of flame shot out from Song Lai's body and soared into the sky, burning the 9 heavens. At the same time, his body was wrapped in black, red, blue, and purple flames. His fist contained the power of 4 kinds of true origin. But when everyone saw the aura Chu Yang revealed, they were scared and retreated. Many people directly fell to the ground. Roar. Dragons roared and elephants roared. 4 dragons were soaring behind Chu Yang. Their dragon roars were extremely loud and clear. The 8 divine elephants were also roaring. It seemed as if they were carrying a divine mountain as they galloped in the void. The rumbling sound was so loud that the void was about to collapse. The power of 4 dragons and 8 elephant. How is this possible? He's just at the peak of the 9th level of the origin martial realm. How can he have such terrifying power? The power of 4 dragons and 8 elephants was simply too frightening. In terms of strength, according to common sense, he could already crush an ordinary expert in the 4th layer of the ascending soul realm. However, Chu Yang was merely a martial artist in the 9th layer of the origin martial realm, yet he actually possessed this kind of strength, the power of 4 dragons and 8 elephants. Everyone from the Coiling Dragon Martial Arts Institution was shocked. Compared to the time when he fought with the Zhao family in the Coiling Dragon Martial Arts Institution, Chu Yang's power had increased by a lot. It was even more shocking and frightening. And only a few days had passed. Especially for body cultivators. It was difficult and slow to advance in body cultivators. It was hard to accept and even harder to imagine. But Chu Yang had done it. He had increased his power by so much in such a short time. Boom. 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 The void was like a huge drum. Chu Yang and Song Lai fought in the air. The collision created dazzling rays of light. It was as if they were working together to beat the drum in the void. When the sound fell into everyone's ears, it was deafening. It was as if their hearts couldn't bear it and were about to explode. The wind blew wildly, wreaking havoc in the surroundings. The whistling sound of the wind hit people's faces. It was as if it was real, and it was extremely painful. The chaotic wind created by the fight was already so frightening. The intensity of the fight between the two could be imagined. Dong dong. With 2 loud sounds, Chu Yang and Song Lai seemed to have crashed into the ground like a mountain. The ground trembled and a huge crater was formed. The explosion caused dust and smoke to soar into the sky, completely submerging the 2 people. Whoosh! A strong wind blew, and the dust and smoke were blown away. And Chu Yang and Song Lai were completely exposed. At this moment, Chu Yang and Song Lai were separated by a distance of more than 10 meters, facing each other. The corners of their mouths were stained with blood. One of their sleeves had exploded, revealing their arms. The muscles and veins on their arms were pulsating and trembling. Their fists were badly mangled, revealing the bones of their hands. Chu Yang was evenly matched with Song Lai, who was using his full strength, and did not fall into a disadvantage at all. Boom! After a short moment of silence, the crowd exploded in disbelief. What kind of monstrous genius is this? Even at the 9th level of the primitive martial realm, he possesses such terrifying strength, the strength of 4 dragons and 8 elephant. The person who spoke was trembling, his lips were trembling, and his voice was also trembling. This is too frightening, too terrifying. Is he still human? At the 9th level of the primitive martial realm, he can match someone at the 4th level of the Chi Soul realm. What kind of shocking strength is this? Those families and sects that originally supported the Azure Dragon School and wanted to curry favor with the Azure Dragon were all terrified at this moment. Their hearts were incomparably terrified. If this monstrous genius came to settle accounts with them, they would die without a burial place. Moreover, they would die in vain because they had made the most fatal mistake. They had underestimated Chu Yang and made the most foolish judgment and decision. The strength of 4 dragons and 8 elephants. There are also gold, fire, earth, and even water attributed true qi. Chapter 193. Song Lai's voice was very cold, for types of true qi, and the quality of your true qi is even higher than the true element first yuan stage. You have the strength of 4 dragons and 8 elephants. Little bastard, you are indeed amazing. Unfortunately, you were too impatient and sent yourself to death. Old bastard, stop pretending to be a wolf. You only have the strength of a 3rd-level Chi Soul stage martial artist. If I want to kill you, you will die. In the previous exchange, Chu Yang's strength of 4 dragons and 8 elephants was like a giant as he bombarded Song Lai. After cancelling out Song Lai's strength of 1 dragon and 8 elephants, he still had the strength of 3 dragons. However, Song Lai's true essence of 4 elements was too strong. It was like a metal ball rolling down from the peak of a mountain. When the strength of 3 dragons collided with it, it was only a draw. A body cultivator's strength of 1 dragon was comparable to a 1st-level Chi Soul stage martial artist. 2 dragons corresponded to a 2nd-level Chi Soul stage martial artist, and 3 dragons corresponded to 3 dragons. Therefore, Song Lai's true strength was only at the 3rd level of the Chi Soul stage. The injury he received earlier had a huge impact on him. Song Lai's pupils trembled. This little bastard's insight was too sharp. He was able to see through his upper limit in an instant. So what? It's enough to kill a little bastard like you. Bang! Song Lai's robe fluttered, causing the dust around him to fly away. At the same time, he stepped forward and walked towards Chu Yang. His gaze was incomparably vicious and cold. His expression revealed a burning killing intent. If this little bastard didn't die today, he, Song Lai, would die the next day. Little bastard, so what if you are a monster? However, it was a pity that geniuses and monsters usually died young. Today, no matter what, you will not be able to walk out of the Azure Dragon School. His voice was as cold as ice. As soon as he finished speaking, Song Lai's eyes flashed with an ominous glint and he immediately launched an earth-shattering attack. Bang! The heavens shook and the earth shook. The entire Azure Dragon School seemed to be trembling at this moment. Song Lai's body was surrounded by 4 colored flames. He was like a fire demon that rushed out from underground lava. Before his fist arrived, a tongue of fire had already swept towards Chu Yang. At the same time, his huge fist smashed towards Chu Yang with the force of thunder. This punch was majestic and filled with a myriad of phenomena. Song Lai's fist blazed with flames. His fist seemed to be a gigantic pill cauldron. Above it, a medicinal cauldron could be seen, as if it was concocting pills. A medicinal fragrance wafted out from the cauldron. And this was the sign of Song Lai exerting his strength to the limit. His main path of alchemy was shown on his fists and feet. The person was like a pill, using the battle of life and death as the fire to refine the body and become a supreme medicine. Thus, he could unleash an even greater power. It could be said that Song Lai did not hold back at all in this punch. Since he had locked onto his target, there was no way he would miss. He had long viewed Chu Yang as a great threat, a thorn in his flesh. If Chu Yang didn't die, he would be sitting on pins and needles, living in fear every day. If Chu Yang grew up, he would not be someone he could face, let alone imagine. Old bastard, you think too highly of yourself. You don't have the ability to kill me. Facing Song Lai's earth-shattering attack, Chu Yang's ferocious nature was aroused. He was extremely violent. Today, I will let you know how the word death is written. However, in the midst of such domineering words, Chu Yang's legs turned into after-images. With a swoosh, he actually broke free from Song Lai's lock and dodged the attack. At the same time, Chu Yang took out the 2nd-layer Chi Soul Realm Tree Demon's Yarrow Core and swallowed it in one gulp. Catcher, catcher. Chu Yang's bones instantly emitted a series of cracking sounds. In an instant, his body grew 3 feet taller. His hair was like thin willow branches, and his skin was like tree bark. His entire body was dark green, as if he was about to turn into wood. His entire body stiffened. His demonized. Serves him right. Do you think a yarrow core can be eaten so casually? He just swallowed 4 yarrow cores, and now he dares to swallow another one. Many people were excited. Swallowing a yarrow core, Chu Yang was finally going to be in trouble. Chapter 194. There was a limit to Chu Yang's ability to suppress demonic energy. He couldn't devour demonic cores endlessly. Previously, he had already reached the peak by devouring 4 demonic cores. Now that he had devoured a second-layer Chi Soul Realm demonic core, he broke through the limit and began to demonize. Song Lai's cultivation was much higher than Chu Yang's. Previously, when Chu Yang fought with Zhao Meng, he had used almost all of his strength. Although he had improved in the past few days, it was still not enough. Especially since he had reached the 3rd transition, he couldn't continue like this, so he had to take the risk. Idiot, do you really think that the flaws I designed in the Overlord Fist are just for show? Song Lai was overjoyed. When Chu Yang demonized, his demonic energy would clash and his true energy would be in chaos, greatly reducing his battle strength. He was all too clear about this situation. He was also all too clear about the danger Chu Yang was in. If he wasn't careful, Chu Yang would explode and die. Old bastard, you don't believe me when I say you're trash. To me, there's no cultivation technique that has flaws. Am I someone an old bastard like you can measure? Stubborn mouth, demonic energy backlash. You can't even take care of yourself. I'll give you another blow. Let's see how you'll take it. Little bastard, go die. Boom. Facing Song Lai's thunderstrike, Chu Yang didn't dodge. At this moment, his body was even more stiff, almost like a puppet with intelligence. The increase in strength was also shocking. It increased the strength of 5 elephants. Previously, it was 1 dragon and 6 elephants. 3 times the strength was 4 dragons and 8 elephants. Now, with the addition of the power of 5 elephants, he had the power of 2 dragons and 1 elephant, and 3 times the power of 6 dragons and 3 elephants. How shocking. Why would he need to dodge? Wang. The air within a few feet of Chu Yang began to distort. A majestic and vigorous aura was emitted from his body. In an instant, the aura on his body reached the heavens and swallowed the seas, completely suppressing Song Lai. If Song Lai was an ancient giant beast, then Chu Yang was the king of giant beasts in the ancient world, enslaving all giant beasts. Under his feet, the earth began to tremble, as if it was afraid of his terrifying strength. I'll chop you old bastard into pieces. In a flash, Chu Yang did not move his feet. Facing Song Lai, who was charging at him, his hand was like an enormous axe, and he ruthlessly chopped down. It was tyrannical, barbaric, and domineering. It was as if he never knew what dodging was. Boom. The moment the fist and palm collided, Chu Yang's body erupted with a tremendous amount of power that could topple the mountains and overturn the seas, surging and surging endlessly. Song Lai was struck by Chu Yang, and his entire body trembled. He let out a blood-curdling scream as he was sent flying by Chu Yang. Bang! 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 Song Lai's body crashed into the ground, creating deep craters one after another. He somersaulted countless times, causing smoke and dust to fill the air. Only after a long time did he stop. What? Everyone watching the battle was so shocked that they couldn't help but cry out in shock. They looked at the extremely embarrassed Song Lai in disbelief. Boom. Almost at the same time, the crowd burst into an earth-shattering clamor. Oh my God, Song Lai was actually sent flying. How is this possible? This is simply too brutal. Song Lai couldn't even withstand a single blow. This monster swallowed the monster cores, causing his true chi to become chaotic and uncontrollable. His strength should have been greatly reduced. How did he become so strong? This guy is definitely not human. Seeing the Azure Dragon School's leader, Song Lai, sent flying by Chu Yang's palm, everyone was dumbfounded. One must know that a moment ago, Song Lai had forced Chu Yang to swallow the 5th monster core. He should have had the absolute advantage and could kill gods and Buddhas. However, in the next moment, Song Lai was sent flying by Chu Yang like a dog. The contrast between before and after was simply too great. It was hard for people to accept. He was like an emperor who ruled over the world. Just a moment ago, he was still floating in the air like a tiger, accepting the worship of his subjects and the reverence of the people. But in the next moment, he was kneeling before a beggar. After this blow, all the majestic, powerful, and undefeated image that Song Lai had built up over the past few decades completely collapsed and was annihilated. Little bastard, so what if your strength has skyrocketed? You're just an arrow at the end of its flight. The dust turned into a storm and soared into the sky like a smoke dragon. Song Lai suddenly stood up and all the dust was swept away. His body was covered in blood, but he became even more ferocious. His eyes were like the most ferocious beast, staring at Chu Yang. Little bastard, you will die today. There will be no other result. Chapter 195. Old bastard, so what if you can see that my body has turned into wood? Even if I stand there and let you hit me, can you hurt me? Chu Yang's voice was so cold that it could freeze the surrounding air. At the same time, he was full of disdain. You're not worthy to kill me. Boom. In an instant, 5 types of demonic chi rushed out from his body and protected him. Then, everyone saw his wooden arms hugging each other with difficulty, and a trace of mockery appeared on his face. Mph, you're trying to act tough, little bastard. You think you can scare me? What a joke, how can I give you the time to suppress your monster essence? With a cold snort, there was a burst of sound. Song Lai punched out and instantly broke through the 5 layers of monster essence protection. His fist fiercely bombarded Chu Yang's body, but at least 60% of the power in his fist was consumed. At the same time, he felt that when his fist landed on Chu Yang's body, it was like hitting a piece of divine iron. From start to finish, Chu Yang did not move at all. Impossible. Song Lai's eyes trembled. The protective monster essence was very violent and consumed 60% of the power in his fist. As a result, one could imagine the situation inside Chu Yang's body. It must be very bad. And with the remaining 40% of his power, he could even kill someone in the Chi Soul stage. However, when his fist landed on Chu Yang's body, this little bastard was not hurt at all. How could he withstand it and be unharmed? Song Lai's eyes revealed extreme horror. He gritted his teeth and said fiercely, I don't believe that I can't break through your defense. Bang 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 bang, the air exploded. Song Lai circled around Chu Yang and punched him again and again. Like a storm, his punches broke through the defense formed by the demon primordial energy and hit Chu Yang's body like countless raindrops. From start to finish, Chu Yang did not move at all. He did not even frown. Song Lai didn't know how many punches he had sent out. But, he soon found that Chu Yang's stiff body had suddenly become soft when his punches landed on Chu Yang's body. Poof! At this moment, Chu Yang also spat out a mouthful of blood, mixed with black blood clots that he had been holding back. However, when he saw this scene, Song Lai was not happy. Instead, he was shocked. Using the body as medicine, a battle of life and death, and a fatal blow as fire. Training the body is like refining pills. You also understand. You're using me to suppress the demonic chi. His repeated exclamations of surprise rang in everyone's ears. In an instant, there were only 4 words in their hearts: whimsical, audacious. What kind of brain was this? What kind of guts was this? To actually use the enemy's fatal blow to suppress his demon essence. How unbridled and reckless, toying with lives. Who would dare to do such a thing? Especially when his opponent was the head of the Azure Dragon School, Song Lai. He was a supreme existence in this martial arts world and was almost a legend. Chu Yang actually wanted to use such a terrifying fist to suppress the demonic chi and temper his body. He was a complete lunatic. Kaka. Chu Yang's body shrunk and returned to its original size. His skin became lustrous again, and his body was no longer stiff. The demonic chi was completely suppressed by him. Haha. He laughed loudly. Old bastard, you only realized it now? It's too late. I should express my gratitude to you. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid I would have been dead by now. Ha ha. Song Lai's face was burning red. He had never been humiliated like this before. He was completely played by a junior. He stubbornly held on and said coldly, "What a laughable smart aleck. Little bastard, your injuries are not light. You're not much different from a half-dead man. A half-dead man is enough to kill you." The murderous intent on Chu Yang's body was so strong that it was terrifying. Just a glance was enough to make one's heart palpitate. Kill. Without any superfluous words, the two shot out at the same time. It was like two giant beasts and two mountains colliding together. Boom. Shockwaves spread out in all directions, causing sand and stones to fly everywhere. Large rocks were also sent flying in all directions by the shockwaves. The violent collision caused a cloud of dust to fill the air. The dust constantly covered the two figures, but they were also constantly sent flying in an instant. Boom, boom, boom. Explosions occurred again and again. The earth shook and the sky shook. The two fought to the death. The destructive power that exploded out became greater and greater. The area of effect also became greater and greater. Run, no one knew who said it, but everyone immediately retreated like the tide, pulling apart the distance between them again and again. The battle between the two of them turned the place into a scene of doomsday. It was extremely dangerous. Chu Yang's injuries were so severe that he could not use the third transformation of the origin martial. Fortunately, his strength had increased by the power of 5 elephants. Added together, it was the power of 2 dragons and 2 elephants. He was stronger than Song Lai. However, even with the power of 5 types of demonic qi, it was still weaker than Song Lai's 4 symbols vital energy. The demonic qi was not his. Boom, boom, boom. The two exchanged blows. Every punch exploded with the greatest power. It was completely a head-on collision without any finesse. They were evenly matched. The sky darkened and the earth darkened. It was difficult to tell who was stronger. Chapter 196. The battle was locked in a stalemate. No one had expected the result to be like this. Outside of the battle, Song Hongji was shaken to the core. He finally made a decision. No, we can't let this continue. Elders, immediately order all the disciples to surround Chu Yang and kill this little bastard. He must die here today. Young master, if we were to intervene in a battle of this level, we would definitely suffer heavy casualties. Furthermore, it's nothing. Furthermore, you should know that if my father is defeated, none of us will be able to survive. Song Hongji's face was filled with fear. Because of this, his expression became even colder. Being petty makes one not a gentleman, being ruthless makes one not a great man. Now is not the time to worry about the reputation of the Azure Dragon School, nor is it the time to scheme. If my father dies, what are we when facing this little bastard? We can only be like chickens and ducks, allowing him to kill us. These words were absolutely correct. A toppled nest has no eggs left intact. The 2 elders of the Azure Dragon School could not care about anything else. Nothing in the Azure Dragon School was more important than their own lives. All disciples of the Azure Dragon School, listen up. Charge forward and kill this little bastard. The 2 elders, Song Hongji, and the others were all quite shrewd. Even though they rushed up and took action, they were all just putting on a show. Most of their strength was in preparation to escape. Kill. However, how could the many disciples of the Azure Dragon School understand this? How could they understand such scheming and vicious thoughts? One after another, the disciples of the Azure Dragon School rushed up and attacked Chu Yang together with Song Lai. They launched sneak attacks and besieged Chu Yang. They used all the methods they had. You're all courting death. Chu Yang was greatly affected. A cold light flashed in his eyes and he used the Azure Dragon School's disciples to quickly retreat. He broke away from Song Lai and charged into the crowd. He conjured layers of palms and continuously slapped down. In an instant, one Azure Dragon School's disciple after another died. A storm was set off at that place and swept out. The disciples who did not know what was going on were swept away by the chi wave. They immediately let out miserable cries and flew away like kites with their strings cut. Their bodies were still trembling in the air. Boom! Song Lai's attack immediately arrived. With a swish, Chu Yang used the great Kiliakasm leaf steps. After images appeared one after another, and it was impossible to tell where he was going. He instantly retreated several tens of meters, and the second wave of Azure Dragon School's disciples arrived. It was as if the tarot cards were being pushed down. When the disciples of the Azure Dragon School saw that many people were rushing up, they also followed the crowd and rushed up. Bang! Chu Yang struck out with his palm, and the space in front of him instantly became empty. Everyone was sent flying. To the current Chu Yang, these Azure Dragon School disciples were just small fries. Although they couldn't threaten him, no matter how small the power of small fries was, they were still power. Especially when he was being watched by Song Lai and these Azure Dragon School disciples. If he wasn't careful, he would die by their hands. Song Lai, the leader of a sect, actually disregarded his reputation and ganged up on a junior. Each sect is attacking one person. When this scene suddenly jumped into their eyes, the observing elders, patriarchs, and sect leaders of the various clans and sects couldn't help but be startled. If this spread out, where would the Azure Dragon School's face go? Where would Song Lai's face go in the future? With Song Lai's identity, even if he won, it would be an unfair victory. However, when some of the clans and sects saw the Azure Dragon School's stance, they were ready to go all out to kill Chu Yang. The Azure Dragon School ganged up on Chu Yang, and Song Lai obviously tacitly agreed. Chu Yang was too shocking, and Song Lai was already terrified by his attacks. So much so that in front of his life, Song Lai gave up his reputation and chose his own life. Chapter 197. After making such a promise, Song Lai had completely shed all pretenses and disregarded everything else. Kill. The remaining two elders of the Azure Dragon School mixed in with the Azure Dragon School disciples. Once their sharp eyes caught onto Chu Yang's flaw, they didn't hesitate to mix in with the disciples and immediately kill him. You two old things and that little bastard. You two deserve to die the most. The little bastard was naturally Song Hongji. Chu Yang's perception was astonishing. How could he not know about Song Hongji's instigation? Otherwise, he would have been ambushed by the Azure Dragon School disciples. He had his eyes on the three of them, but under Song Lai's lockdown, it was hard for him to succeed. Suddenly, Chu Yang rushed out from the encirclement and stood still. Song Lai, look at your current state. Then take a look at the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. Do you know why they haven't made a move yet? Swish. Song Lai abruptly looked at the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution that was biding its time. When he saw Nangong Ying and Li Yu's ridicule, his expression suddenly changed. He had actually forgotten about this great threat. Those restless clans and sects seemed to have just realized that they had been locked down by the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. They were instantly drenched in cold sweat. Because there is no need. In the blink of an eye, a dazzling saber light appeared in Chu Yang's hand. The saber had yet to be sharpened. He is going to use that saber move. Buzz. There was a buzzing sound in Song Lai's mind. Soon after, he frantically made his move. There was a loud rumbling sound as a mountain-sized cauldron was condensed. Under the cauldron, there were raging flames. It seemed like he was refining elixirs. From the cauldron, strands of fragrance were emitted and transformed into ferocious beasts. It seemed like the elixir being refined was using many ferocious beasts as ingredients. What was even more astonishing was that this cauldron condensed by Song Lai's qi was actually emitting a medicinal fragrance. This meant that Song Lai had cultivated such a true Yuan skill to the point of perfection. All Azure Dragon School disciples, listen to my command. Follow my cauldron and charge. Swish. As he spoke, a dazzling saber was cleaved out. The saber light was incomparably blazing and the void was sliced apart like paper. The incomparably sharp saber light swept towards everyone from the Azure Dragon School. Not good. Song Lai's eyelids suddenly jumped. He realized that there was a great danger. When the Azure Dragon School disciples followed his huge cauldron and rushed up like a tide, he leaped and escaped. Right at this moment, all of the Azure Dragon School disciples that rushed up to Song Lai's cauldron were like a piece of paper that was sent to the blade. They were all silently cut into two halves. The world came to a standstill. That slash wasn't particularly dazzling, but its power was earth-shattering. It was as if no words could describe that slash just now. It was unbelievable. Many of the Azure Dragon School's disciples looked at the bloody line on their waist with astonishment and disbelief. Some of them even touched it with their hands in disbelief. It was as if they still didn't believe that they were cut in half because they didn't feel anything. Rumble. The large cauldron that was cut into two halves collapsed and exploded with true essence. In an instant, flesh and blood flew everywhere and turned into a hell on earth. Blood flowed like a river, and the Azure Dragon School disciples that rushed over all died. There were no less than 300 to 400 people. Dang! When the blade touched the ground, Chu Yang was so weak that he knelt on the ground with one knee. The sound immediately attracted everyone's attention. With this attack, all of Chu Yang's monster essence and true chi were used up. And this was the second time he used Fragrant Elephant crossing the river to cut off the flow of people. Song Lai stared at Chu Yang. His eyes were scarlet red, as if he was a fierce beast that was choosing people to eat. The golden crown that bound his hair exploded with a bang. His long hair was scattered, and his expression was mournful. The surrounding air was distorted, and waves of chaotic air currents were constantly exploding. A feeling of extreme danger erupted from his body. Little bastard, I'll definitely make you pay with your blood for the lives of hundreds of Azure Dragon School disciples. Song Lai was extremely fierce. After paying such a huge price, he wanted Chu Yang to die here no matter what. At this moment, Chu Yang was extremely weak. He couldn't even stand. Song Lai was sure that Chu Yang was like a lamp that had run out of oil. He didn't have any more trump cards, but at this moment, Song Lai was so frightened that he almost trembled. Chu Yang was about to swallow a monster core. He clearly saw that it was a monster core of the third layer of the Chi Soul realm. It was at least equivalent to 4 monster cores of the first layer of the Chi Soul realm. Everyone, quickly attack and kill him in one fell swoop. Chapter 198. Burning Wrath of the Heavens. Song Lai's wrists were like 2 huge dragons as they shot out 2 torrential flames. Almost at the same time, all of the Azure Dragon School's disciples in all directions attacked at the same time. These Azure Dragon School's disciples had very low realms and weak strength. Even a dozen of them were not enough to threaten Chu Yang. However, when so many of them attacked together, it was different. The power was still very frightening. Kill me. Who can kill me? At this moment, Chu Yang attacked. Whoosh! A flying knife that was condensed from the demon chi that he had just obtained from the demon core flew out. In an instant, it split into 10 and turned into 10 phantoms. Soon after, the 10 phantoms exploded, causing hundreds of leaves to dance in the air. The scene was shocking. Such an unimaginable flying knife was simply magical. In an instant, those Azure Dragon School's disciples who were surrounding and attacking were so scared that they all stopped in their tracks. Chu Yang's attack just now had already scared them out of their wit. Even Song Lai's body stopped in an instant. However, although the scene was shocking, it did not have much power. It was completely to scare people. However, when Song Lai came back to his senses, it was already too late. Boom! A violent and vigorous aura exploded from Chu Yang's body. The surrounding air seemed to have come to life and condensed into the shape of an evil wolf behind Chu Yang. A bunch of shocking air waves gushed out from Chu Yang's body and soared into the sky. The demon chi around his body boiled, and an illusory, barbaric, and fierce aura spread out. Roar! At this moment, 2 ferocious wolf heads appeared on Chu Yang's shoulders. The eyes of these wolves were evil and mysterious. They stared at everyone in a gloomy manner. It seemed as if a demon from hell had appeared in this world, and considered them as prey or enemies. Illusory demon wolf. Looking at the 2 ferocious wolf heads, some people recognized the demon core of the demon beast. The illusory demon wolf was very good at hiding and creating many phantoms that overlapped, making people unable to distinguish them. At the same time, it was very fierce. The 2 wolf heads weren't real wolf heads either. They were just uncontrollable demonic chi. However, it was still frightening enough. At the same time, The characteristics of the phantom demon wolf seemed to have been completely inherited by Chu Yang. His body became illusory, and with a whoosh, he drifted away like a mist, dodging Song Lai's attack. Whoosh! Suddenly, a flying knife appeared, and a phantom demonic wolf appeared on it. It raised its head and howled, and the void seemed to tremble as if it was about to collapse. As soon as this flying knife appeared, the sky, earth, sun, and moon all lost their color. It was as if they were going to shoot down at an inconceivable speed. Song Lai could feel the horror the most. He suddenly felt as if his eyes were covered by a leaf, or as if his eyes were dug out by an illusory demon wolf. He could not see anything. Suddenly, his vision turned black, and his mind became blurry. At that moment, everyone could clearly see that his eyes were wide open. His face was filled with fear and disbelief, as if he had seen the most terrifying thing in the world. No. Song Lai broke free from the confusion of his mind and let out a shocking roar. The moment he wanted to escape, it was already too late. In the blink of an eye, the flying dagger pierced through his right eye and into his brain. Bang! Under everyone's astonished gaze, Song Lai fell to the ground with a loud bang, stirring up a cloud of dust. You want to kill me, right? Then die. Chu Yang's body instantly leaped up and the sword in his hand drew a huge arc in the air. It landed in a densely packed area of people and instantly, miserable cries rang out. That group of Azure Dragon School disciples fell down like harvested straws. His body leaped again, and the knife attacked another group of Azure Dragon School disciples. Another large group of Azure Dragon School disciples fell down. In just a few breaths of time, the ground was littered with corpses of Azure Dragon School disciples. Among these people, there were some who wanted to rush down and kill Chu Yang. However, in just a few breaths of time, they were scared out of their wits. The sovereign is already dead. Everyone, run. This guy is not human. How can a human be so terrifying? He is a demon. We can't defeat him. Everyone, run. It's too scary, it's too scary. Ah, he is coming towards me. Run. In an instant, the Azure Dragon School collapsed like scattered sand. Without an expert like Song Lai to block him, Chu Yang was like a demon god, unstoppable. Logically speaking, Chu Yang should have used up all his true qi and stamina after executing such a terrifying knife attack. It would be hard for him to continue. However, after he devoured a third-layer qi soul realm beast core, he became even more berserk than before. Song Hongji and the two elders of the Azure Dragon School did not have the slightest bit of resistance in his hands. They were like fleeing rats, caught and killed without any suspense. This caused the Azure Dragon School disciples to be even more terrified. Chu Yang seemed to have completely lost his mind after being attacked by the beast core. Later, he might even kill the people of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. Chapter 199. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. After Song Lai, the pillar that supported the Azure Dragon School, collapsed, it completely collapsed. The Azure Dragon School's disciples were fleeing in panic everywhere. The Coiling Dragon Martial Institution's people didn't chase after them. Chu Yang seemed to have fallen into madness, but he did not chase after them. After he killed the Azure Dragon School disciples, he took out the secret cauldron and poured his true qi into it. The secret cauldron enlarged. With a clang, the cauldron fell to the ground. He entered the secret cauldron and closed the lid. Immediately, he activated the sword heart heavenly flame and the blade crystal earth water to wash his body. At the same time, he used the full martial spirit and fell into a deep sleep. In the battle of life and death, although Chu Yang's words were mocking, every nerve of his was tense. He used the genius martial spirit to the extreme. Especially at the end, his mental energy consumption was extremely high. At this moment, his mental energy was exhausted and his head was splitting. Chu Yang seemed to have fallen into madness because of the impact of the demonic qi, but in reality, it was the use of the genius martial spirit that consumed too much of his mental energy. The consumption of mental energy was different from true qi and physical energy. He could quickly replenish his true qi and physical energy by swallowing demonic cores, but not mental energy. In the end, swallowing the demonic core of the illusion demon wolf had indeed caused a huge impact on his mental energy. If it was not for Little Six and Little Black joining hands to suppress it, the consequences would have been even more serious. Bang! Blazing flames emerged from the secret cauldron, and the sound of water waves could be heard. The people who were originally afraid that Chu Yang would lose control and completely turn into a murderous maniac finally calmed down after seeing this scene. However, looking at the secret cauldron with blazing flames, they could not help but be shocked. Tempering of water and fire. Chu Yang, this monster, could already subdue the dragon tiger of water and fire. It was not easy to subdue the dragon tiger of water and fire. To make the two side by side, it was like the sun and moon illuminating the world. It seemed easy, but it was extremely difficult. Those who had tried it knew the danger. It was not bad if 1 out of 1,000 people succeeded. No wonder, he also knows the secrets of the Azure Dragon School's alchemy and body refinement. Since he could subdue the dragon tiger of water and fire, why wouldn't he dare to use Song Lai's attack as a fire to temper his body? The Azure Dragon School and Song Lai really shouldn't have provoked such a monster. They really made a big mistake this time. Even if they died, they would have died for nothing. A single misstep leads to eternal regret. The Azure Dragon School colluded with the Zhao clan and attempted to overthrow the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. Song Lai even chopped off one of the arms of this Evildor's father. If they don't die, who will? Unfortunately, the Azure Dragon School's foundation of close to 100 years is truly going to be completely destroyed and cease to exist. I have to immediately return and inform the sect master that the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution is not to be trifled with. This Evildor is no longer human. As long as he is willing, he can wipe out a family or a sect all by himself. If we provoke him, we will have to live in fear every night. The various clans and sects that had come to the Azure Dragon School to watch the battle could be said to be trembling with fear. They thought that they were all masters in this martial arts world. But after seeing Chu Yang's great power, they realized that they were pitifully weak. Even if they had rushed up together just now, they would have died a violent death. Disperse, disperse. Everyone, disperse. Hurry up and return to report. Almost in an instant, the crowd that was originally like a swarm of ants suddenly dispersed. Many of them immediately leaped and flew away, wanting to immediately inform their families of this result. Chu Yang had killed Song Lai and destroyed the Azure Dragon School. The impact was too great. This region was going to be turned upside down and everything was going to be reshuffled. It was foreseeable that from now on, no matter which clan or sect, they would have to follow the lead of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. Today's battle would definitely become a legend that would be passed down for a long time. From today onwards, no one in the martial arts world wouldn't know of the name Chu Yang. Others can leave, but can your Fire God School and Lightning Speed sect leave? And the Ouyang clan, do you still want to leave? Chapter 200. The members of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution finally made their move. However, it wasn't the deacons or Nangong Ying. Instead, it was the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. Li Hao, Zhong Tian, and Ji Jingcheng were the first to step out. They were also heading to the Five Elements sect and wanted to see if they were qualified to enter the Five Elements sect. They couldn't kill Song Lai, and they couldn't exterminate the Azure Dragon School either. However, they still felt that they could give the Fire God School a try. Even if they lost, even if they were injured, it didn't matter. No matter what, they had to see their own abilities today. Many clans and sects were aghast when they saw this scene. The disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution actually wanted to challenge the elders of the Ouyang clan, Fire God sect, or Lightning Speed sect. They are crazy. However, they soon realized that the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution might be arrogant, but they seemed to be very calm. The opponents they chose were all one cultivation realm higher than them, and that cultivation realm was the next cultivation realm that they were about to step into. Finally, the spectators understood that the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution were all trying to cross cultivation realms to challenge. What kind of spirit was this? If it was just a single person, it wouldn't be much. However, the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution were all eager to give it a try. Their battle intent was high and it was different. This batch of disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution are incredible. Many people were extremely shocked. The Coiling Dragon Martial Institution didn't only have one monstrous talent, Chu Yang. There were probably many other monstrous talents. Even if their aptitudes were inferior, the spirit they displayed now meant that their martial Dao path wouldn't be too bad. You guys wanted to kill junior brother Chu earlier. If you don't give us an explanation, don't think you can leave. That's right. The disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution roared. Earlier on, the dean didn't allow us to disturb junior brother Chu's training. However, you guys aren't within the scope of junior brother Chu's training. That's right. Those who want to kill will be killed. When you guys had the intention to kill junior brother Chu, you should have thought of the consequences. Li Yu, Nangong Ying, and the others saw the reaction of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institute's disciples and felt gratified in their hearts. Such unity and boldness was required, and all of this was because of one person, Chu Yang. They could foresee that this batch of disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution would be more prosperous than any previous batch. Haha, good, good. The more Nangong Ying thought about it, the happier he became. He said 3 good words: disciples of the martial courtyard, you can choose your own opponents. Feel free to make your moves. I will suppress the situation for you. Hee hee. Li Yu also laughed evilly and said, kids, your courage is commendable. Just don't let others beat you until you have nothing left. After all, not everyone is a little sheep. Haha. The martial courtyard's disciples laughed. Little sheep seemed to be a very distant nickname. Who would have thought that this little sheep would be so monstrous and terrifying? We've already received Uncle Li's instructions. We won't back down even if we're beaten to a pulp. As soon as Zhong Tian responded, all the disciples of the Martial Arts Institute began to clamor. Their fighting spirit soared once again. This scene sent chills down everyone's spine. This batch of disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution wasn't just led by a leader like Chu Yang. The rest of the disciples were all outstanding individuals, and they already had the spirit to look down on the world. Boom. Clang clang clang, clang. It was unknown who made the first move. In an instant, the scene was in chaos. Many people started to kill each other. All sorts of sounds exploded, and the air exploded. Dust soared into the sky and filled the air. The people of the Fire God sect, Quick Thunder sect, and Ouyang clan all had unsightly expressions. They were treated as whetstones by the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution to sharpen their disciples. What made them especially fearful and apprehensive was the monstrous Chu Yang in the secret cauldron. They could totally imagine the consequences. If they killed a disciple of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution, this monstrous genius would soon challenge them. What kind of scene would that be? Perhaps, they would be the next Azure Dragon School, or the Azure Dragon School after that. Chapter 201. After the battle, the people of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution were dealing with the aftermath of the Azure Dragon School. Time passed day by day. This time, the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution seemed to have robbed a sect's treasury. The loot was extremely shocking. Many disciples received generous rewards. As for the Azure Dragon School, it had become a new territory of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. After a discussion between Nangong Ying, Li Yu, and the other deacons, they decided to move the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution here. The mountain range that the Azure Dragon School occupied was a treasure land. The heaven and earth yuan qi was extremely dense, making it more suitable for cultivation. At the same time, the land was spacious. Compared to the Coiling Dragon Town, this place was obviously more suitable. Chu Yang was tempering himself with water and fire in the secret cauldron. There were always people watching by the side. This time, Chu Yang's tempering with water and fire took much longer than the previous time. After more than a month, Li Hao, Zhong Tian, and the other disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution had already left for the Five Elements sect. However, Chu Yang had yet to wake up. No one suspected that Chu Yang was dead or that he had been tempered to death by the water and fire. This was because the aura from the secret cauldron was getting more and more shocking. In the end, The pressure it emitted made it impossible for people to approach. No one knew what had happened inside. The only thing they knew was that it was very shocking. Boom. After nearly 2 months, the pressure suddenly disappeared. At this time, Chu Yang finally woke up. When Chu Yang woke up, he unconsciously looked at his dantian. The 9 Wisdom King images had already disappeared without a trace. The flood dragons from the 18 flood dragon strikes had also disappeared. At this moment, there was only a chaotic and hazy millstone in his dantian. This millstone gave people the feeling that it was supporting the heavens above and the earth below. It was as if the heavens and the earth were created by it. What the hell is this millstone? Looking at this millstone that had appeared out of nowhere, Chu Yang was completely confused. Could it be that after the 3rd transformation of my origin martial art, I went through the 4th transformation and formed a new technique, the Great Millstone Divine Technique? Making fun of himself, Chu Yang's mood couldn't relax. What the hell is this millstone? My IQ is not enough. Everything in his body had changed too much. Chu Yang felt as if he had slept for 10,000 years, and when he woke up, the world had already changed. Things remained the same, but people were no longer the same. So when he looked at the millstone, he was stunned. He carefully sensed it. Every time the millstone spun, not only would it sweep up the heaven-earth yuan qi and grind it, it also seemed to grind the true qi in his body, his flesh, blood, bones, and organs, this millstone. Chu Yang's pupils constricted. He instantly realized how extraordinary this millstone was. It was constantly helping him temper his fleshly body, and at the same time, it was constantly tempering the true energy in his body. It was transforming all the energy in his body into a purer, higher-grade energy. If Chu Yang swallowed a demonic core now, he felt that the demonic core would be instantly ground by the millstone, and the impurities would be crushed clean. Then, it would be transformed into the purest energy. Was this millstone refined by water and fire, or was it tempered by the enemy's sledgehammer during a great battle, when my spirit, my flesh, and blood were like iron embryos? Chu Yang couldn't figure out the origin of this millstone that had appeared in his body out of thin air. A strand of his consciousness couldn't help but enter the millstone. In an instant, he seemed to have rushed into a sea of stars. The stars shone and then changed. Flowers, birds, fish, insects, birds, beasts, rivers, lakes, suns, moons, stars. There were also tadpole characters, hieroglyphs, bone characters, and many other characters. Gods, demons, Buddhas, immortals, demons. It seemed as if all the things in the world, were all present. It could be said to be the myriad phenomena in the universe. The myriad phenomena in the universe are all present. This millstone can almost be said to be a myriad phenomena millstone. It was too shocking. Chapter 202. At this moment, something happened that shocked Chu Yang even more. The millstone changed again. It jumped suddenly, as if it was trying to escape or hide somewhere. Suddenly, it disappeared from Chu Yang's perception and was replaced by a celestial manifestation apparatus that was rotating slowly. He sensed again and found that the millstone was in the celestial manifestation apparatus. Roar. Suddenly, from the celestial manifestation apparatus, there was a dragon's roar, beast's roar, and eagle's cry. At the same time, there was also a Buddhist chant. A halo rushed out from the apparatus and became brighter and brighter. There were dragon's roar, elephant's roar, tiger's roar, eagle's cry, ape's cry, Amitabha, and other Buddhist chants that were getting louder and louder. On the millstone, there were flood dragons, divine elephants, white lions, flying eagles, ferocious tigers, violent apes, 5-colored peacocks, Mahamayuri Dharma Laksana, saber and sword, golden emperor technique, thousand faces technique, and many other cultivation techniques. They all appeared one by one. It seemed that all the cultivation techniques that Chu Yang had learned, such as Mahamayuri Sutra, Great Thousand Leaf Hands, Fragrant Elephant Vigor Technique, Deadly Wind Sword Technique, 18 Flood Dragon Strikes, and so on, were all merged together. Also, on the celestial manifestation apparatus, these cultivation techniques were still being deduced continuously. This, Chu Yang was even more incredulous. Suddenly, he thought of a possibility. Could it be that this celestial manifestation millstone was obtained from that broken Buddha statue? When Chu Yang was in Fallen Dragon City, when he was auctioning at the Sunset Merchant Guild's auction house, the Mahamayuri Sutra acted strangely. Therefore, he had a crazy bidding war with Zhong Ming, the son of Luoyun City's city lord. In the end, he killed Zhong Ming and obtained the broken Buddha statue. At that time, a five-colored brilliance entered his body. What was the five-colored brilliance? He had never understood it. But it doesn't seem right. The five-colored brilliance is related to the Mahamayuri Sutra, but it has nothing to do with this celestial manifestation millstone. What the hell? Chu Yang frowned. The inexplicable appearance of this thing in his body made him feel uneasy. Heaven-blessed martial god boss, this thing suddenly jumped out from your Mahamayuri Dharma idol. Little Sixth's exhausted voice was filled with joy. Boss, with this treasure, why didn't you lure it out earlier? If you let this treasure grind it 1,000,000 times, I reckon that Little Sixth's soul will be grinded to the pure yang state and come back to life. Boss, Sixth brother and I are absolutely loyal. We definitely won't dare to play any tricks. Besides, Sixth brother and I have our soul imprints in your hands. Boss, what is there to be worried about? Little Black's voice was filled with exhaustion. Clearly, its spirit had been ruthlessly crushed by the millstone. Chu Yang didn't hear the rest of what the two monkeys said. He only heard one sentence: the millstone came out from Mahamayuri's Dharma form. In that case, the spherical heaven all manifestations millstone must have been obtained from the damaged Buddha statue. Haha. Chu Yang couldn't help but laugh out loud. He had reaped great rewards from this trip to Fallen Dragon City. Other than the origin martial third transformation, he had actually obtained the spherical heaven all manifestations millstone. He had taken the risk to lure Zhong Ming, the son of the city lord of Luoyun City, out and killed him. This transaction was simply too worth it. Haha. Chu Yang laughed even louder. At the same time, he made a ferocious declaration. I love to kill and rob. Haha, his ferocious laughter immediately spread far and wide. Nangong Ying, Li Yu, Chu Yunlong and the others of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution heard it immediately. This little demon has woken up. This little sheep hasn't woken up too late. Chapter 203. Swish, swish, swish. Ear-piercing sounds echoed as Nangong Ying, Li Yu, and the others arrived instantly. Behind them were many more disciples from the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. Clang. The cauldron lid soared into the sky as Chu Yang rushed out from the secret cauldron. A pair of blood-colored eagle wings extended from his back. With a swish, he soared into the sky and soared in the sky. The blood eagle and the black eagle from before had the same innate talents as the eagle wings, eagle eyes, etc. Therefore, Chu Yang didn't obtain anything from the blood eagle's demonic core. Pong, 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 pong. Four explosive sounds echoed as the blood eagle's wings exploded. The two pairs of bat wings opened up and flapped, creating a strong wind. However, the wind wasn't as fast as the blood eagle's wings. Chu Yang opened his mouth slightly as formless sound waves rushed out. The things in front of him instantly appeared in his mind, but it wasn't of much use. He had eyes, and with his current perception, this kind of sound wave detection could be said to be useless. Boom! Chu Yang landed from mid-air, causing the ground to tremble and dust to rise. Soon after, the dust became even more intense as though there was a sandstorm. A lump of qi appeared in his body. As the lump of qi transformed, the gravity around him was also constantly changing. This was a secret technique that he grasped in the Coiling Dragon mystic realm. With a loud rumble, a scorpion with a metallic luster suddenly appeared out of nowhere. It silently traversed the ground and suddenly pierced out, shattering a large boulder 1 zhong away. Sandstorm, scorpion assault. Together with the change in gravity, it should be useful. With a thought in Chu Yang's mind, the sand that was stirred up instantly calmed down. Nangong Ying and the others had extraordinary splendor in their eyes. Chu Yang was actually able to control sand. When the disciples of the martial institution saw this scene, most of them were already dumbfounded. However, there were some disciples who felt that it was only natural. Such an obvious difference was naturally because the former had never seen Chu Yang's prowess while the latter didn't. Li Hao, Zhong Tian, Chu Na, Wang Xiaoman, Ji Jingcheng, and the others had already left for the Five Elements sect. With their departure, it meant the arrival of the new batch of disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. Of course, not all the disciples of Li Hao's batch were heading to the Five Elements sect. Chu Yang did not move, but a gust of wind suddenly blew around him. Dragons follow the clouds, tigers follow the wind. This ability was obtained from the Wind Tiger's beast core. Chu Yang sensed it and thought to himself, there isn't much difference between a tiger and a lion. Previously, when I devoured the White Lion's beast core, the Wind Tiger's beast core didn't have much use. As for controlling the wind, it doesn't have much power. At most, it can make my wind-chasing life-reaping sword and movement technique more agile. Immediately after, Chu Yang used the innate skill that he had obtained from the monster core of the tree demon. Silently, the true qi in his body transformed into a fragrance that diffused out. After smelling this fragrance, many disciples of the martial institution unconsciously moved closer to Chu Yang. This scene startled Nangong Ying, Chu Yunlong, and Chu Yang's big brother. Of course, they were not affected by this fragrance. Kai kai kai. Suddenly, blood-colored roots broke out from the ground like steel whips. Then, like snakes and dragons, they pounced on the disciples of the martial institution who had unknowingly walked over. With a crisp sound, the roots exploded in the air and stopped in front of them. A sharp gust of wind hit their faces, instantly waking them up. Ah! Among them, many people cried out in alarm and retreated in horror. At this moment, they seemed to see the blood-colored roots wrap around them and drag them to the ground. At the same time, they were astonished to find that dark green energy was being snatched from the surrounding vegetation, and all of it was being absorbed into Chu Yang's body. It could rob the essence of vegetation and devour its prey like the tree demon, but its devouring ability was not as good as the seven-colored heaven-devouring python. Chu Yang instantly understood and shook his head. The essence of vegetation was useful for healing injuries, but to this extent, it had little effect on him. Chapter 204. Chu Yang shook his head. Soon, he executed the last innate skill he obtained from the beast core. The illusion demon wolf was good at creating illusions and hiding. Once he executed it, Chu Yang's aura instantly converged and disappeared in a trance. Shortly after, 7 to 8 illusions appeared on his body and he seemed to have really disappeared. Raw, 7 to 8 illusion demon wolves rushed towards Nangong Ying, but Nangong Ying didn't move at all. He laughed and scolded, "Little sheep, you are just a sheep. I even killed the real illusion demon wolf, and you still want to use this to scare me? I know you're hiding behind that rock." Many disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution were stunned. When did Chu Yang hide there? But soon after, they heard Nangong Ying's exclamation. "How is this possible? Little sheep, how did you do it?" When the disciples of the martial institution looked over again, they saw Chu Yang rushing out from the 7 to 8 illusions. He plucked a strand of Nangong Ying's beard and left. "Weren't those illusions just now?" "That's right. Why did senior brother Chu suddenly appear? Before I came, I heard that senior brother Chu is a god. It seems like the rumors are true. Moreover, he seems to be even more powerful than the rumors." The new disciples of the martial institution were dumbfounded. They were full of admiration in their hearts. Their minds were filled with the scene just now, and it was deeply imprinted in their minds. "Little sheep, how did you do it just now? Otherwise, I will skin you alive after you plucked out your beard." Nangong Ying was shocked. He and Li Yu had killed an illusion demon wolf before and thought that he had seen through the tricks of the illusion demon wolf. But when Chu Yang executed it just now, he couldn't even tell the difference between the real and the fake. He was shocked and puzzled. "It is a waste of the martial institution's Great Thousand Leaf Hands. Uncle, I think you shouldn't keep the Great Thousand Leaf Hands martial skill. Just burn it and save you from embarrassing yourself." The innate skill of the illusion demon wolf combined with the Great Thousand Leaf body that you deduced from the Great Thousand Leaf Hand. Li Yu was also very shocked, but when he heard the words Great Kiliakasm Leaf Hands, he understood. When Chu Yang was cultivating the great Kiliakasm leaf hands, he had been watching from the side and had clearly seen Chu Yang deduce the great Kiliakasm leaf body. However, Chu Yang's cultivation had been too low at that time and he hadn't been able to manifest it. Haha, Uncle Li, it seems that you are the tallest among the idiots. Chu Yang's mocking voice could be heard. Nangong Ying did not have the slightest bit of temper. This Evildor understood that Chu Yang was bullying him. Take it. Nangong Ying angrily swung his hand and a book flew towards Chu Yang. Chu Yang reached out and grabbed it. Seeing that it was the Overlord's technique, he quickly glanced at it and threw it back. This is useless. It was useless. Nangong Ying was stunned. Little sheep, there's a trap in the Overlord fist that you've learned. I spent half a day to find the Overlord technique for you, and now you're telling me that it's useless? Pa. While he was stunned, the Overlord's technique landed on Nangong Ying's face. It looked a little funny. Don't look at me like that. It's useless, Chu Yang said with disdain. That idiot Song Lai wants to trick me. He'll have to cultivate for another 800 years, right? What I deduce is much better than his Overlord's technique. Why are you looking at this trash? Before Nangong Ying could argue with him, he heard a loud bang. Chu Yang's fist smashed into the ground, and the illusion of 5 divine elephants appeared behind him. The strength of 5 elephants. Just now, Chu Yang was showing off a little, pretending to be pretentious, but now, he was really frowning. He had swallowed a total of 5 monster cores, one of which was at the 3rd layer of the Chi Soul realm. Furthermore, his body was being tempered by the spherical Heaven Thousand Manifestations millstone. However, he had only gained the strength of 2 manifestations. He estimated that with his current strength, he could kill a 2nd layer of the Chi Soul realm. However, if he did not have a Yarrow core, he would still be killed by someone at the 3rd layer of the Chi Soul realm. Without reaching the Chi Soul realm, all those Yarrow beasts' talents are useless. They are all useless. What was worse was that he could only break through to the Chi Soul realm through the method of body cultivation. Chapter 205. The path of body cultivation required a large amount of natural treasures in order to absorb the essence within them to strengthen oneself. However, natural treasures were not easy to find. Next in line would be a large amount of precious medicinal pills, followed by Yarrow cores. There were a lot of demonic beasts, but beast cores were the cheapest. Naturally, the cheapest ones had a lot of drawbacks. The Tyrant Fist was one such case. The Tyrant Fist was separated from the Tyrant Technique. The only change Song Lai made was to change the method of suppressing and refining the demonic chi. There wouldn't be too many problems in the beginning, but if he followed this method later on, he wouldn't be able to suppress the demonic chi and would be in great danger. Unfortunately, he met Chu Yang and didn't succeed. Chu Yang only had the strength of 1 dragon now. Only then would his body be strong enough to transform Jin Qi into Jin Yuan. Only then would he be able to connect the heaven and earth bridges. I want beast cores, I want treasures, I want saintesses, I want goddesses. Chu Yang suddenly shouted out his lofty ambition. Soon after, he stared at Nangong Ying with a pair of thieving eyes. I say, Uncle, I am the main force in exterminating the Azure Dragon School. Where is my share? I don't want anything else, I just want beast cores, worldly treasures, and a few beauties to rub my sweat and rub my shoulders. None of them. Nangong Ying was so angry that his nose was crooked. Wishful thinking, who didn't know that these 2 things were the most expensive? If I want them, I'll definitely only want beast cores and worldly treasures. Who wants money and lousy dance? Uncle, you're going too far. Just give me 100 beast cores. 100 beast cores. Nangong Ying stared. Little sheep, why don't you just rob them? Didn't I already rob the Azure Dragon School? Chu Yang said, everything in the Azure Dragon School is mine, uncle. Don't be too black-hearted. Be careful of being struck by lightning, you won't have a little cock in your pants. This little bastard. Nangong Ying didn't want to pester him endlessly. Song Lai is also a body cultivator. Do you think he'll leave behind any worldly treasures or beast cores for you? If you shout again, I'll skin you alive. Chu Yang stared blankly for a moment. He hadn't fucking thought of this. His hopes were dashed in an instant. He wailed endlessly, "My monster core. My treasure. Damned song lie, you old turtle. If I had known earlier, I would have eaten you raw. Little brother, are you unable to break through to the Chi soul realm because your heaven and earth bridges were enlarged because of your body cultivation?" His eldest brother, Chu Fei, immediately saw through Chu Yang's current problem. "Actually, you don't have to do that. You don't have to reach the strength of one dragon to break through to the Chi soul realm." Chu Fei continued, "Other than the heaven and earth bridges, we can also connect the hidden veins and bypass the heaven and earth bridges to reach the 6 suns. Hidden lineage. There was such a saying. Chu Yang was instantly overjoyed. All roads lead to Rome. He believed in this hidden lineage. Also, most people connect the heaven and earth bridges from the bottom to the top. However, there are some unusual people who do the opposite and connect the heaven and earth bridges from the top to the bottom. From the top to the bottom? Chu Yang was stunned again. This was indeed a blind spot in his thinking. "That's right." Chu Fei revealed a fascinated expression. "I've heard that there are even people who completely fill up the natural chasm between the heaven and earth bridges and connect them." Fill up the natural chasm between the heaven and earth bridges. Chu Yang's mind trembled. The distance between his heaven and earth bridges was like an interstellar distance. No matter how much he filled it up, it would be useless. However, he instantly understood. Connecting the heaven and earth bridges from the top to the bottom might not be so far away. Just like how after he reached the strength of one dragon, the distance between the heaven and earth bridges in his eyes would be greatly reduced. Of course, with a different angle, everything would be seen differently. Chapter 206. Facing Chu Yang's puzzled gaze, Chu Fei smiled. It seemed that his little brother was very unhappy about being stuck on the heaven and earth bridges. "Little brother, do you know about the innate aperture?" Innate aperture. Chu Yang had never heard of it before. Humans are born into the innate realm. The innate aperture is formed first, and then blocked after birth. It is hidden and invisible, so very few people know about it. Chu Fei continued, "If you can sense the innate aperture, you can use the material that blocked the innate aperture to fill up the heavenly chasm." Chu Yang could be considered to have witnessed this move. But, this is almost impossible. After Chu Fei finished speaking, he rejected such an idea. He said, "This is completely whimsical and fantastical. As far as I know, there shouldn't be anyone who can do it at the moment." Chu Yang was excited at first, but these words were like a bucket of cold water poured directly on him. After the innate aperture is blocked, it is extremely firm and unshakable, right? Chu Yang said, "And if you want to shake it, you need a terrifying amount of spiritual energy, right?" "Indeed." Chu Fei nodded, "But this is not the most difficult part. If you can find the innate aperture, you can try to pry it open no matter how difficult it is. Especially for some sacred grounds or big sects, they have plenty of methods. But unfortunately, they don't even have such a chance, because the most difficult part is to find the innate aperture. If you can't find the innate aperture, you can't do anything. If you can find it, not only can you open the innate aperture and fill up the heavenly chasm, you can also open up a spiritual mystic realm in the innate aperture, which is very beneficial." Chu Fei briefly explained, and Chu Yang immediately understood. Innate acupoints were like a bustling city, and spiritual power was like those who went to the big city to work hard. They would pry open the blocked innate acupoints and open up a space. It was like having the ability to establish a foothold in the big city and start their own business. The opening of the spiritual arcane realm was like buying a house, getting married, and having children. That was the gist of it. In this spiritual arcane realm, one could better interact with the world. Just like in a big city, information, resources, services, and so on were incomparably concentrated. Compared to in a village, one could obtain information faster, feel the pulse of the world, and listen to the voice of the world. "I want to buy a house. I want to raise little 3, little 4, little 5, little 6, and little 7, little 8, and little 9. Chu Yang was instantly energized. If he couldn't do it in his previous life, then he must do it in this life. Buy what house? This mistress, Is it a cat or a dog? Chu Fei, Chu Yunlong, and Nangong Ying knew that this little sheep had gone crazy again. It was actually speaking sheep language that humans didn't understand. At this moment, Chu Yang didn't respond. He used his genius martial spirit to search for the so-called innate acupoints. With a rumbling sound, a loud noise was heard in his spiritual world. Immediately, his consciousness followed his genius martial spirit as if he was on a high-speed train. It rushed along his meridians and almost reached the heaven and earth bridges in an instant. Seeing that it was about to fall into the natural moat, the high-speed train suddenly made a turn and rushed towards a place where there were no rails. It seemed to have pierced through the void in an instant and drilled into a wormhole all of a sudden. Chu Yang only felt that he had pierced through a layer of window paper. Immediately, he pierced through a misty space. In front of him was a mountain that seemed to connect with the sky. The mountain was covered with huge crisscrossing cracks. It was densely packed, like a porcelain that had completely cracked. Rumble. Chapter 207. Rumble. A thunderous sound came from Chu Yang's body, and Chu Fei couldn't help but tremble. Little brother found the Xiantian acupoint, and is attacking the Xiantian acupoints. Impossible. How is this possible? Chu Fei couldn't help but laugh in his heart. His little brother was monstrous, but he found the Xiantian aperture just as he said so, and even caused such a big commotion. It was impossible. If that was the case, then what were those monstrous geniuses he saw before? They were simply bullshit. At this moment, Chu Yang's face was also filled with astonishment. This is the Xiantian aperture. Didn't you say it was hard to shake? He was dumbfounded. Could it be that little Fei was exaggerating just now? Or little Fei actually doesn't know anything and is just talking nonsense? Chu Yang's consciousness floated in the air above this space. He watched as the rock flow surged out of this secret realm like a raging river. Then, it went straight to the location of the two bridges of heaven and earth, pouring down like a waterfall. Under the natural chasm of the two bridges of heaven and earth, there was a loud rumbling sound. A huge cloud of dust soared into the sky. It was already filling up the natural chasm. It seemed that there was no mistake. These were innate acupoints, but they were very different from what Big Brother had described. Chu Yang couldn't help but poke his big brother Chu Fei. I say, little Fei, tell your brother Yang, are you half a bucket of water or a full bucket of water? Do you know anything about the Xiantian aperture? Looking at Chu Yang's strange eyes, Chu Fei couldn't help but be stunned. He didn't answer and instead asked, little brother, you found the Xiantian aperture? After saying that, he was shocked by himself. It was impossible to find the Xiantian aperture so quickly. Whatever Brother Goat asks you, just answer Brother Goat honestly. Chu Yang was very proud. It's just a Xiantian aperture, how can it stump your godly brother Yang? Don't you see that there's already a country of women behind me, lining up to serve your brother Yang? Your little brother, you really found him. Chu Fei's eyes widened in shock. He looked at Chu Yang as if he was looking at a monster, an alien, an unknown creature. His body trembled as if he had been struck by lightning, and he seemed to be scared out of his wits. TSK. Chu Yang said, little Fei, everyone says that your brother Yang isn't an ordinary person. He's a great genius. Looks like little Fei doesn't have a deep enough understanding of your brother Yang's genius. I have to seriously criticize you on this point. You have to keep up with it. Chu Fei didn't say anything, but Nangong Ying and the others didn't have much of a reaction. This was because they didn't understand the so-called Xiantian acupoints at all. They didn't even know anything about it. They only felt that it was very powerful. Little Fei, your current expression makes you look like an idiot. You made my brother Yang's face burn. I feel very embarrassed. Is there a need to make such a fuss? In any case, Chu Yang didn't feel much and didn't feel that it was very powerful. He raised his hand and pointed at Chu Fei's forehead. A consciousness entered Chu Fei's spiritual world. Big brother, I will try to find your Xiantian acupoints. Try to cooperate with me. Little brother really found the Xiantian acupoints. It's confirmed, it's completely confirmed. Chu Fei's mind buzzed and went blank. Others didn't know what this meant, But he did. It was simply unbelievable. After entering his big brother's spiritual world, Chu Yang seemed to have sunk into endless darkness. He used his genius martial spirit to sense for a long time but still couldn't find his big brother's Xiantian acupoints. Boss, with boundless magical power, you should be able to find it by following your great sun treasured body's aura. Little Six's voice rang out, and Chu Yang was shaken. He seemed to understand why he had been able to find his own Xiantian acupoints so easily, and why he had been able to shake them so easily. It was because he was an existence infinitely close to the Xiantian level. Chapter 208. Then, Chu Yang calmed down and felt the aura of his great sun-treasured body, giant spirit-treasured body, and the golden treasured body. Relying on their aura, he began to search in the consciousness of his big brother, Chu Fei. Under such a search, Chu Yang immediately found that in the endless darkness, there seemed to be a faint light. He tried to find it, but it was blocked by an invisible barrier and couldn't go any further. Big brother, this is where your innate aperture is. I don't think the barrier can be shaken. Chu Fei was still in a daze at this moment. When he heard Chu Yang's voice in his consciousness, he just nodded subconsciously. Then, his whole body suddenly shook. This is my innate aperture. Little brother, you can really find my innate aperture. At this moment, Chu Fei was already dumbfounded. Chu Yang only saw a trace of light, but he was different, because this was his spiritual world, a continuous mountain range, with giant peaks piercing through the clouds, as if they were pillars supporting the sky. His consciousness passed through this mountain range, and in the deepest part, there was a misty and chaotic area, and he couldn't see it. Innate aperture, it's really the innate aperture. I, Chu Fei, actually saw it and found my innate aperture. Chu Fei's mood at this moment was indescribable. Chu Yang was simply too outrageous. Not only could he easily find his innate aperture, but he could also help him find his innate aperture. Such a thing, there was nothing more unbelievable than it. It was simply nonsense, but it really happened. Haha. In front of everyone, Chu Fei couldn't help but look up to the sky and laugh out loud. I, Chu Fei, am destined to be defeated like this. I am destined to lose an arm. My cultivation will return to its original state and I will have to start all over again. Is all this also the will of the heavens? A real man doesn't cry easily. At this moment, Chu Fei's face was covered in tears as the frustration, unwillingness, rage, and resentment that had accumulated in his heart were all vented out. He once again saw boundless possibilities. The darkness before him was completely dispelled, and it was a vast expanse of light that allowed him to roam freely. Chu Fei considered himself to be a genius, but at this moment, he found that this word was not suitable for him. Only his younger brother, Chu Yang, could be called a genius. No one else was worthy. Whether it was the third revolution of the primitive martial or the discovery of the Xiantian aperture, which one of them wasn't world-shaking and shocking? If someone had obtained the secrets of the first martial 3 transformations and discovered the Xiantian aperture, they would probably want to immediately destroy their own cultivation and recultivate. The heavens had treated them well. Chu Yang sighed when he saw his brother's expression. His previous advice didn't have much of an effect. It only made his brother hide his heart even deeper. He didn't want to worry about himself or his family. His advice had the opposite effect, but he didn't realize it. Big brother was crippled and had lost an arm. How could such a defeat be erased with just a few words? This kind of defeat dealt a heavy blow to Chu Fei, and it was far deeper than he had imagined. After all, his brother had always been considered a genius, a legend. He had suddenly fallen from the clouds and was looked down upon. The fickleness of the world, one could easily imagine his mood. Chu Yang didn't doubt that his brother, Chu Fei, had returned to the Coiling Dragon Town and the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. He had definitely been looked down upon by others, and even ridiculed. It was only the difference between the light and the dark. How could his brother, Chu Fei, not feel the coldness of human emotions? At this moment, his brother had completely let it all out. Chu Yang could only say that this Xiantian aperture was more useful than any nonsense. Chapter 209. Little Fei, Look at your current state. You're simply too weak. You should learn from your brother Yang. There are many people who look down on me. Who do you think you are? Haha. Chu Fei once again laughed out loud. Although these words were not serious and sounded like a hooligan, it was still very satisfying to hear. There are many people who look down on me. Who do you think you are? At this moment, many people were sighing, including Nangong Ying and Li Yu. Previously, Chu Fei was a peerless heaven's pride and was considered a legend of the coiling dragon town. However, he had lost an arm and was forced to return in a sorry state. It was hard to avoid being looked down upon and ridiculed by others. Nangong Ying and Li Yu realized that they might also have such thoughts. However, when they looked at the two brothers, Chu Yang and Chu Fei, at this moment, such thoughts were completely gone. Before, Chu Yang was called a little sheep and was considered a trash under the protection of his father and big brother. But now, who would have thought that Chu Yang would be even more shocking and frightening than his big brother, Chu Fei? Now, Chu Fei was in a difficult situation. But what about in the future? Who could guarantee that he wouldn't be like Chu Yang? Who could guarantee that he wouldn't suddenly return to his former glory and even overshadow Chu Yang? When that time came, what would they think? At this moment, many people's thoughts changed. When they looked at Chu Fei again, they could not help but revere him in their hearts. Such subtle changes were all noticed by Chu Yunlong. He was very relieved and happy. With two sons like this, what more could he ask for? Rumble. The loud sounds coming from Chu Yang's body became louder and louder. It was as if countless thunderbolts were ringing in his body. This was the sound of the two monkeys, Little Black and Little Six, constantly bombarding the towering mountain that looked like cracked porcelain. At this moment, this tall mountain seemed to have turned into a great river from the sky. The mountain completely collapsed, and countless rocks and soil, like a surging river, crazily filled the natural moat of the heaven and earth bridges. From the top to the bottom, the mountain collapsed. It was as if the palace in the sky had collapsed. The mountain fell down and filled up the natural moat. The scenery hidden behind the towering mountain was instantly revealed and imprinted into the eyes of the spectators. It was a world, a primitive world. After the Xiantian aperture acupoints were blocked, the clear qi would rise and the turbid qi would sink, forming a heaven and earth. This was the initial appearance of the world. Gigi. When Little Six and Little Black saw the untainted world, they were overjoyed and excited. They could not wait to rush in. Haha. Chu Yang couldn't help but laugh. Originally, he only wanted to buy a house. Now, not only did he buy the land, his house was even connected to a different world. My backyard is a different world. As one can imagine, this feeling is naturally incomparably carefree, even though this is only a spiritual world and not a real world. Buzz. The void behind Chu Yang buzzed, and the phantom of a world appeared behind him. He appeared in this world as if he was the master of this world. He was a supreme existence, and he was the only one in this world. Suddenly, everyone's hearts beat violently, as if they were going to jump out of their chests and explode. Their minds were also violently shaken, and they almost knelt down in front of Chu Yang, kowtowing to such a supreme existence. However, when such a shadow appeared, although it was incomparably huge, it did not emit any aura of pressure. Chu Fei's mind was also violently shaken, as if it was hit by a huge hammer. Little brother has already opened up his own spiritual mystic realm, and his spiritual mystic realm is extremely shocking. At this moment, Chu Fei felt that he might never be able to catch up with his younger brother. Rumble. Chapter 210. Chu Yang stepped on the void as if he was stepping on the earth. Following this path to the heavens, he seemed to be able to reach the 9 heavens. The heavenly chasm between the 2 bridges had been filled up, and this path to the heavens was the manifestation of the phenomenon. It shouldn't be called a phenomenon, but a type of divine ability. At this moment, Chu Yang seemed to have a divine bridge that could reach the other side. It also seemed to have a boat that could cross the heavenly chasm, the sea of bitterness, and travel through the universe. There was also a path to the heavens that led to the endless world. Shrinking the earth into an inch, so close yet worlds apart, Chu Yang was shocked. Filling up the heavenly chasm between the two bridges actually gave him such an ability. No wonder his big brother was so shocked just now. Sure enough, there was a great fortune in it, and such a great fortune was simply unimaginable. His current realm was too low to display such a divine ability. Once his realm increased, it would be absolutely unimaginable. Chu Yang took a step on the path to the heavens and immediately soared into the 9 heavens. In the blink of an eye, he was high up in the sky. However, he suddenly realized that almost half of the true energy in his body had been consumed. This damned thing was just like the first time he used the incense elephant crossing the river. The consumption was astonishing. At the same time, the path to the heavens beneath his feet also became thinner. Short distance movement is fine, but if the distance is too long, a man will immediately surrender and be cursed by the queen as a useless thing. However, this was already heaven-defying enough. Chu Yang immediately pondered whether or not this path to the heavens could be concealed. After all, it was too eye-catching to reveal. He shrank the path to the shortest possible distance. Then, his true energy surged out, forming a 5-colored cloud that completely covered the path. This 5-colored cloud was formed by the real qi in Chu Yang's dantian when he was practicing the Mahamiri scripture, before he had awakened his memories of this past life. And, this 5-colored cloud was a perfect match for this heavenly road at this moment. So, Chu Yang instantly thought of a classic line. In my heart, he is a peerless hero. One day, he will ride a 5-colored cloud to marry me. Haha. When Chu Yang thought of this line, he instantly laughed out loud. In the future, he could go pick up girls like this. This brother will ride a 5-colored cloud. Of course, Chu Yang also longed for the somersault cloud of the great sage, heaven's equal, Sun Wukong. He remembered that when he was young in his previous life, he had dreamt of being like Sun Wukong. Now, it seemed that his childhood dream could come true. Whoosh, Chu Yang dubbed the sound himself. It was the familiar sound of Sun Wukong somersaulting. At the same time, he also somersaulted out. Without a single somersault, they would travel 108,000 li. With just a single somersault, they would roar and gallop. Chu Yang somersaulted out. His complexion immediately turned pale. The real qi in his body was completely drained. In a flash, he fell down like a big stone. Bang! With a loud sound, the birds and beasts on a mountain peak nearly 100 feet away from Chu Fei and Nangong Ying were startled and fled. At the same time, a cloud of dust was raised. Soon after, the sound of cursing could be heard from afar. It was obvious that Chu Yang had fallen quite hard. Motherfucker, what bullshit somersault cloud, what bullshit 108,000 miles. I can't even act cool or throw a tantrum. What bullshit thing, and you still want to rely on you to pick up girls? You have really blinded my eyes. Facing such a Chu Yang, what else could they say? They could only be speechless. He was still not satisfied. Chapter 211. He had failed to act cool and made a fool of himself. He had failed to get injured. Chu Yang naturally didn't have the face to see anyone. He found a crack on the ground, and directly drilled into it. He completely disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only a ground full of astonishment like chicken feathers. Chu Fei had also sensed the Xiantian aperture and was greatly affected. He immediately left, and the two brothers disappeared in an instant. There are scares every day. If I stay by this little sheep's side for too long, I might be scared to death one day. At this moment, Li Yu's mind was constantly replaying the scenes he had just seen, the illusory world behind Chu Yang, the heavenly path under his feet, the 5-colored clouds, and the shocking scene of him doing a somersault. Every scene shocked him. Every scene was completely beyond his imagination and understanding. The ironclad rules of the martial world were completely overturned. It was as if Chu Yang was born different from them. These rules could not restrain him at all. He had already jumped out of the 5 elements and was no longer in the 3 realms. Recalling the scenes related to Chu Yang, Li Yu sighed in his heart. From seeing Chu Yang comprehend the great 1,000 leaf hands in the library, to killing Song Lai's son in the Coiling Dragon's secret realm, to saving the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution and single-handedly overturning the Azure Dragon School. Until now, How long had it been? How much time had passed? In less than half a year, he, Li Yu, had seen so many incredible things from this little sheep, Chu Yang. Li Thing, are you just scared? I was scared to death just now. Nangong Ying's sharp eyes were misty at this moment, revealing the complicated emotions in his heart. There seemed to be disappointment, envy, jealousy, and of course, shock and amazement. All these emotions were intertwined, and the feeling was indescribable. The new generation replaces the old, and the new generation replaces the old. Nangong Ying sighed, we're old, we're old. We're really going to be beaten to death on the beach like that little sheep said. What do you think, Brother Chu? Chu Yunlong's face was also filled with shock and horror. At this time, when he was asked this question, he could only smile bitterly. How did you feel just now? I have the general idea. Although he is my son, do you think he is still in my imagination? The three of them had truly received quite a bit of stimulation today. They went to drink together and left at the same time. As soon as they left, the disciples of the Martial Institute were in an uproar. Is this the rumored senior Brother Chu? You are indeed formidable, simply too formidable. Heavens, if I hadn't seen him in person, I wouldn't have been able to imagine how powerful senior Brother Chu is. How is it as simple as just being powerful? This is simply a dream. Even though I saw it with my own eyes, I still felt that it was unreal. It was like experiencing a dream. Isn't that so? It's truly unbelievable. There's a grand path that leads to the heavens beneath my feet, and I feel as if I'm standing firmly in space. It's simply unrestrained to the extreme. Even flying isn't as elegant as senior Brother Chu's. It's so fascinating. Regardless of whether it was the new or old disciples of the martial courtyard, after seeing everything that happened today, their hearts were completely shaken. They felt that even if they were to tell others about what they saw today, no one would believe them because it was too outrageous. To be precise, this was tantamount to a fool's dream, a fantasy story. Chu Yang spent an entire night healing his injuries and recovering his true qi. His injuries were not light, and his bones were broken. If it were someone else, they would have completely lost control of their body in the sky and fell down like a huge rock. Most likely, their injuries would have been more serious, and those with weaker cultivation would have died directly. Of course, the time spent on healing his injuries was not much. The main thing was that it took a lot of time to recover his true qi. Right now, the true qi in his body was unimaginably vigorous. It was suddenly exhausted, and it would be difficult to recover in one night. Chapter 212. Chu Yang did not stay at the Azure Dragon School. The Coiling Dragon Martial Institution had just moved here, and his mother, Liu Yi, did not follow. Instead, she stayed at the old Coiling Dragon Martial Institution in the Coiling Dragon town. She was there to accompany her, and there were women who could talk about the family matters. Chu Yang felt that his father had made a wise decision. With his mother around, he would not travel far. Chu Yang was about to head to the Five Elements sect, and it was impossible for him not to travel far. In addition, his mother had just reached middle age, and with his elder brother and father around, he could leave and explore. Of course, he could leave, but before he left, he had to accompany his mother for a few days. All mothers were the same. Chu Yang had recently revealed his talent, and Liu Yi had patiently warned him not to be arrogant and not to be arrogant. He had to know how to be humble. He was going to the Five Elements sect, and she had repeatedly warned him not to be impulsive outside. He had to endure, give way, take a step back, and everything would be fine. Her main meaning was, safety, 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 the most important thing. After that, many parents were worried about their children's marriage. Chu Yang was no exception. His fiancée jumped out again, and his elder brother, who was listening at the side, burst into laughter. Other than accompanying his mother, most of the time, there were many disciples of the martial institutions who came to ask Chu Yang for guidance on martial skills. Generally, they were not provocative, and Chu Yang had pointed them out one by one, causing the disciples who had moved to the new institution to rush back to the old institution. Chu Yang's current reputation had overshadowed everything. Even Li Yu and Nangong Ying were not as good as him. And Chu Yang's guidance was something that many disciples of the martial institutions yearned for. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. Night. In the night sky, there were many stars, and a gentle breeze blew. Chu Yang originally wanted to stay for a few more days, but he was urged by Chu Yang to hurry to the Five Elements sect. Otherwise, it would be too late. If not for Chu Yang's current terrifying speed, it would be too late for him to rush over. Remember, there are many martial institutions under the Five Elements sect. Every time the Five Elements sect recruits new disciples, 100 martial institutions will gather. There are crooks mixed in with the honest folk. You must be careful and do your best to ensure the safety of our martial institution's disciples. I say, dear father, can you just say that it's my sister? Don't worry, if anyone dares to touch her, I'll take his head. Chu Yunlong immediately tided him up. As for the disciples of the other martial academies, you have to do your best to ensure their safety. I know. Don't be so long-winded. My ears are growing calluses. Chu Yang didn't take it seriously. With his personality, was he the kind of person who would allow others to bully him? It would be good if he didn't bully others. Don't be careless. Our martial courtyard is located in a remote area, and our strength should be the weakest among all the martial courtyards. It's better to be cautious. This was the truth. The Coiling Dragon town had the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. It could be said that the founder of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution had a high status in the Five Elements sect. Otherwise, it would be impossible. Normally, the Five Elements sect would only establish a martial institution in cities like the Fallen Dragon City and the Luoyun City that Chu Yang knew. Naturally, the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution was much weaker than these martial institutions. The closest city to the Coiling Dragon town was the Fallen Dragon City. Of course, the Fallen Dragon City also had a martial institution of the Five Elements sect, the Fallen Dragon City Martial Institution. The Coiling Dragon Martial Institution couldn't be compared to the Fallen Dragon City Martial Institution. The difference in strength was too great, just like the difference between a village and a city. Little brother, if you meet the person who severed my arm, don't kill him or cripple him. Chu Fei also spoke, I will return everything, not leaving anything behind. Who is that plaything? Let me know if he is a tortoise or a tortoise. Chu Yang squinted his eyes. Don't worry, I won't kill him. However, if I'm unhappy, I will definitely beat him up. You will know when you reach the Sky Academy. Immediately, Chu Fei grasped Chu Yang's Achilles heel. Little brother, sister-in-law is as beautiful as a fairy. You have to hold on tight. TSK. Chu Yang was disdainful. He then muttered to himself in his heart, Five Elements sect, Sky Academy, huh? I will go there one by one and leave my name there. Boom. True energy surged out from Chu Yang's body. A pair of eagle wings formed on his back, and he immediately soared into the sky. In an instant, he flew far away, and only his voice could be heard from afar. Big brother, father, I am leaving. Take care. Swish. Chapter 213. The journey between Fallen Dragon City and Coiling Dragon Town took about half a day or even a day. Chu Yang flew quickly and used only 3 hours to reach Fallen Dragon City. It was already midnight. This won't do. I have to find an inn and stay for the night. Chu Yang's exhaustion of veritable energy and physical strength was still manageable because he had replenished them. However, his mental energy was not. If he had not opened his spiritual secret realm, he would not have been able to fly for so long. Even so, he was already mentally exhausted. Dragon Gate Inn. Chu Yang was very familiar with this name. He smiled and said, I will stay in this Dragon Gate Inn as well. After settling down, Chu Yang immediately started to recover his mental energy. His hands started to change, forming the lotus seal. Immediately, his consciousness changed and a white lotus appeared between his eyebrows. The root of the white lotus seemed to be inserted into mud, stabbing into Chu Yang's exhaustion. As the white lotus bloomed, his exhaustion seemed to become nutrients that were quickly absorbed into the white lotus. Spiritual Pearl Seal. Chu Yang's hand seals changed from the lotus seal to the spirit bead seal. Immediately, A spirit bead appeared in the stamen of the white lotus flower. Along with the petals of the lotus flower, the petals withered one by one. The spirit bead seemed to be like the sun rising from the east, illuminating Chu Yang's spiritual world. It was as if it was dispelling the darkness in the world, shining light to every corner. Lion seal. Aquarius seal. After practicing a few hand seals, not only did Chu Yang's mental energy become exhausted, but it also became spirited. His mental energy even faintly increased. The effects of these hand seals evolved from the Mahamayuri scripture are truly astonishing. Chu Yang couldn't help but sigh in admiration. In this way, his following journey would be much easier. After that, Chu Yang discovered that this world was not pure. He could still hear the sound of wind and rain in the night while he was in the Dragon Gate Inn. The sound of the wind hitting the banana leaves made him feel like he was staying in a hotel in his previous life. It seems that no matter which world it is, they are all filthy. Having sharp senses also had its disadvantages. Just as Chu Yang was about to turn off his sharp senses, he suddenly heard an extremely vulgar voice. This beauty is at the ascending soul tier, yet she actually managed to make me faint. Hihi, this time, my joyous pills can finally show their worth. Not only will I be able to taste this beauty, but I'll also be able to advance to the ascending soul tier. I'll definitely be more ecstatic than before. Young master, don't take out the ball of cloth from her mouth. If she kills herself by biting her tongue, all our previous efforts will be wasted. Joy pill. Chu Yang once again heard the name of such a pill. Speaking of which, he was the one who had escorted this pill to Fallen Dragon City. Today, it could be said that it had been utilized to the extreme. Who knew how many hedonistic disciples had relied on the joy pill to raise their cultivation? At this moment, right before his eyes, a woman had been robbed because of the joy pill. Speaking of which, Chu Yang had a part to play in this. Damn your grandpa, should I save her or not? His mother had repeatedly warned him not to cause trouble and not to show off. Chu Yang had planned to be an obedient child, but now, it seemed that he was about to break. Of course, he was afraid. Those who could buy the joy pill definitely had a significant influence. Since this young master was able to obtain the joy pill, he was definitely the favorite of those big shots. If he were to stab him, not only would it be dangerous, but it would also be very troublesome. I'll just be a good child. Just at this moment, his perception heard that vulgar voice again. This beauty is really innocent. She actually believed me when I said that I was a disciple of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. She is probably a disciple of the Five Elements sect. Therefore, young master has to be even more careful. If the Five Elements sect were to find out, our general's residence would be annihilated. Hehe, what is there to be afraid of? I have already done the deed of husband and wife with her. She can only obediently marry me. No matter how dissatisfied she is, as long as she has my child, what else can she do? Fallen Dragon City General's Residence. A female disciple of the Five Elements sect. Because the disciple of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution had been tricked. Chapter 214. Young master, please slow down. This old servant will go out first. In the darkness, Chu Yang saw an old man retreat from the guest room. He was at the second level of the Chi Soul realm. How dare you attack an ascending soul realm martial artist when you're only at the second level of the Chi Soul realm? Chu Yang sneered. He used his sharp senses to carefully scan his surroundings. After confirming that there was no one hiding in the dark, he immediately made his move. Wind Killer Sword, Yama style. Without any sound, especially in the dark night, Chu Yang was like a ghost. He was like a gust of wind in the night, suddenly rushing towards the old man. At this moment, the old man did not notice anything strange and was completely unprepared. Chu Yang came from behind him and pierced the back of his neck, piercing through his entire throat. Ge. The old man's throat only made a strange sound before he died in an instant. He did not even know who killed him. After that, Chu Yang silently approached the guest room. He, senior sister, just submit to your junior brother. Woo. Through the gap, Chu Yang could vaguely see a tall young man tearing off his clothes in a panic, revealing his bony body. Chu Yang could only see his back, and couldn't see his wretched smile at this moment. However, Chu Yang could clearly sense the young man's cultivation, a mere 8th level of the Chi Soul realm. The elixir of joy is mine. Why don't I just give my woman to someone else? Only the heavens and earth will know. When Chu Yang made his move, such a thought appeared in his mind. When he entered the room, the young man was already naked. He did not even notice Chu Yang's arrival. Hey, brother, I'll go first. You can pick up the broken shoes behind me. Chu Yang patted the young man's shoulder. Scram. It has always been me, the young master. Who do you think you are? How dare you fight with me? His words abruptly came to an abrupt halt as he abruptly turned around. Seeing Chu Yang's beaming smile, an ominous glint immediately appeared on his face. Just as he was about to explode, Chu Yang's fist had already landed on his mouth. Bang! In order to stop him from making any noise, Chu Yang stepped on his mouth with his foot. So, he could only make a whimpering sound. If you make another sound, I'll send your little rooster into the cycle of reincarnation. The young man felt the tip of the sword on his crotch and instantly stopped moving. He was extremely obedient, like an obedient dog. At this moment, Chu Yang saw the woman. She was tied to a cross like Jesus, but her 2 long legs were not in the shape of Jesus. Instead, they were written with the number 8. Her mouth was gagged, and her entire body was tightly bound by ropes. Her legs, waist, chest, hands, and even her neck were all tied. She had an oval face, skin as white as mutton fat. Her eyebrows seemed to have been plucked from the crescent moon in the sky. Her watery eyes, especially at this moment, were filled with tears and even panic, making her look even more pitiful. There was no need to comment on her figure. Her figure was the golden ratio, perfect curves, and a pair of jade-like feet. She was cute and small, making one's heart flutter. Those with foot fetishes would probably act up immediately. This woman was already extremely beautiful, but now she was even more alluring. She was so tightly bound that some parts of her body were even more prominent. Chu Yang looked at her and felt a wave of heat in his nose, as if something was about to flow out. Also, at this moment, he really wanted to pick up a whip, find a candle, and perform some kind of procedure. Chapter 215. Woo, woo, woo. Chu Yang's invasive gaze caused the woman to let out an angry and embarrassed cry. Her watery eyes looked as though they could spit out flames and burn Chu Yang into ashes. This woman has no eyesight at all. Now is the time for you to flip out. Luckily, this young master is being kind. Otherwise, I would have replaced that idiot and let you whimper to your heart's content. Chu Yang directly decided that this woman had no eyesight. Also, he did not think that his gaze was invasive. If this was his previous life, this gaze would be normal. Besides, she was so beautiful that she did not want men to look at her. He hated this kind of woman the most, especially those who were gorgeously dressed and would be scolded with a single glance. What are you looking at? Why are you glaring at me again? If it weren't for your good looks, I wouldn't even bother looking at you. Chu Yang did not give her any face. Seeing that she was not convinced, he scolded, "Don't think that just because you are a beauty and have some good looks, you can enter this young master's eyes. You are still lacking. Let me ask you, are you a holy maiden?" The woman's eyes were filled with embarrassment and anger. Wasn't this bastard here to save someone? Answer me. Chu Yang suddenly raised his voice. Are you a holy maiden? He was like a little sheep that had turned into a big wolf. The woman was frightened and quickly shook her head. Are you a demoness? She shook her head again. Are you a goddess? She still shook her head. Are you a witch? She still shook her head. You are not a holy maiden, demoness, goddess, or witch. How can you tell that this young master has taken a liking to you? Why don't you take a look in the mirror and look at yourself? You are just a dogtail flower and you still want this young master to have bad intentions towards you? Stop dreaming. The woman was so angry that she could not help but glare at him. Her eyes were about to spit fire. Chu Yang raised his voice again. You are still glaring at me. Forget it. You are a simple-minded woman. In this kind of situation, Your mother did not tell you to put on a pitiful look, but not too pitiful to the point of attracting the man's heart. Or rather, you are really an idiot. As a punishment, so that you will remember, you will be tied up there for now. Chu Yang was too lazy to pay attention to her. He trapped the naked youth, and took off the storage ring on his hand. Then, he immediately smiled. He couldn't help but shiver all over when he saw this woman with such a sinister smile. Hihi, you better not disappoint me too much, or I promise to teach you a lesson. Chu Yang warned the youth. What he meant was that the amount of treasures in his storage ring was not enough, and he would suffer in the future. Then, he began to look through the items. The first thing he saw was a woman's storage ring. He thought that it must be this woman's storage ring. The 5 Elements sect was good, so he had to give them some face. It was impossible to kill them, but it was not too much to take some of the good things inside. Chu Yang immediately checked the woman's storage ring, and his eyes lit up. There were many treasures inside: 1,000-year earth sealwort, flaming fruit, exquisite ginseng. There were many more, but he only recognized these 3. These were all heavenly and earthly treasures that were most suitable for body cultivators to use to refine their bodies. The energy contained within them was astonishing. What is this? Suddenly, Chu Yang's eyes widened. He saw familiar handwriting: to younger sister Tong. Chu Yang hurriedly opened the letter to take a look. Suddenly, he was struck by lightning. He was instantly charred on the outside and tender on the inside. It was really Big Brother's handwriting. It really was Big Brother who wrote this letter. The content of the letter was mostly about how after Big Brother Chu Fei was crippled, he felt that he could not fulfill the promise. He expressed his guilt and asked her to find another husband. Chapter 216. Sister-in-law. Fuck, what did I do just now? Just now, was that considered taking liberties with sister-in-law? Chu Yang was about to cry his eyes out. He remembered that he had just scolded the woman for being a retard. This was very tragic. He had done what he should and should not have done. And the facts proved that it was not right to have bad intentions when seeing a woman. But now it was too late. These 2 points were the most serious. But just now he had said many inappropriate things. To be more precise, they were very shameful words. Chu Yang almost went limp and fell to the ground. Mitch, now you know how powerful I am. I am the only son of Fallen Dragon City's general's residence. If you dare to treat me like this, my father will definitely make you beg for death. This grandson, he thought that he was afraid of him. Chu Yang was really angry. If it was not for you, I would not have scolded my sister-in-law for being a retard and almost took liberties with her. Your grandfather, if I don't teach you a lesson, I will be sorry for myself. Bang! Chu Yang fiercely jumped up, and fiercely punched this grandson's stomach. He was in so much pain that he curled up like a shrimp, and couldn't even make a sound. At this time, Chu Yang found another fatal problem. It was very serious. He found that this grandson was completely naked. Wasn't this dirtying his sister-in-law's eyes? Bastard, I still have one more crime. Chu Yang immediately stewed this general's only son and rolled him into a ball. He hurriedly stuffed him into a corner. Shua. Then, he went in front of the woman like lightning and hurriedly untied her. Then, he directly knelt down with a plop. The ignorant are innocent. The flood rushed to the Dragon King's temple. Sister-in-law, I promise that I did not have any bad intentions towards sister-in-law just now. Chu Yang made a serious statement, and his sudden action scared the woman out of her wits. Why did this bastard suddenly change his personality? Then, when she heard the word sister-in-law, her body stiffened, and her expression became very interesting. You are that little sheep. She was so shocked that her little mouth formed an O shape. Even the little sheep knew. How could it be wrong? At this moment, Chu Yang wanted to die. Why did he do such a bunch of shameful things just now? Yes. Sister-in-law is so wise. You are indeed a heroine, a heroine. I am that little sheep. Sister-in-law, what I said just now was all bullshit. Just pretend that you didn't hear it. I'm just a little sheep who doesn't know how to filter my words. You have to pay special attention to this sister-in-law. The woman's face flushed red, and when she recalled what had just happened, she couldn't help but feel angry. She gritted her teeth as if she wanted to hit someone. Sister-in-law, don't hold back. If you need to hit, hit. Don't save your energy. The word sister-in-law entered her ears and pierced every nerve of hers. How could she still care about being angry? Her face instantly turned red as she reprimanded, "Who's your sister-in-law? Little sheep, don't talk nonsense. Sister-in-law, don't deny it. Little sheep, you know that if you're not my sister-in-law, who else can you be?" Chu Yang's heart was filled with resentment. He immediately wailed, "That bastard Xiao Fei. He's so secretive. It's so hard on me." Chu Yang's face changed in an instant, causing the woman to feel a little strange. He was too shameless. This little sheep, Chu Fei had told her before, but it didn't seem like this at all. However, when she suddenly thought of Chu Fei, her mood suddenly fell. How is he now? A while ago, he was tired of living. He said that he was sorry to the heavens and sorry to the earth. He wanted to hang himself. Now that I've seen him in person, I finally know who he is sorry to. Chu Yang continued on, "Sister-in-law, don't worry." His attempt to commit suicide was stopped by the wise and mighty me. And, after using his face to smash through thousands of mountains and change 1,000 faces, he has already sobered up. He has vowed to start all over again. He must marry a fair, rich, and beautiful woman, and walk to the peak of life. His mouth was full of nonsense, causing the woman to laugh. However, she quickly became gloomy. Soon after, the sound of something breaking through the air came from outside, causing her expression to change. Chu Yang only heard her anxiously say, "My junior sisters and the others are coming. Don't let them know about the matter between me and your big brother, otherwise." Chapter 217. Bang, bang, bang. The guest room was directly smashed open, and 7 or 8 women barged in at the same time. In an instant, it was as if spring had arrived in the guest room. The spring light was bright and beautiful, and hundreds of flowers were blooming. These 7 or 8 women were more beautiful than the flowers, making Chu Yang's eyes light up. Especially the woman in the lead. This woman was only 16 or 17 years old, but she seemed to have reached the most beautiful and mature season in a woman's life. She was in full bloom like gold. She was already so dazzling at this age. When she really grew up, who knew how beautiful and alluring she would be? It was likely that people would be unable to extricate themselves from her. At this moment, she was already extremely beautiful. She was incomparably cold and elegant, making people not dare to get close to her. There was a kind of holiness that made people unable to bear or dare to profane. In the cold and holiness, there was also a kind of ethereal and otherworldly charm, with a hint of otherworldly taste. However, compared to her cold expression, her moving body was incomparably hot and passionate. Even if she had a cold face, she seemed to be smiling at you when she looked at you. For example, right now, she was obviously angry, but her bright eyes were watery, her red lips were incomparably gorgeous, and her white teeth were sparkling. Her entire person was exceptionally delicate and fiery. Her neck was as white as a swan's, towering breasts, incomparably slender waist, and her curves were fine. She was big in all the right places, tall in all the right places, thin in all the right places, convex in all the right places, concave in all the right places. Her devilish figure was completely inconsistent with her temperament. From her proud body, there was not a trace of otherworldly and holy purity. Instead, she was simply a witch in the human world, charming all living things. However, the contradiction between temperament and figure was strangely perfectly combined on her body. Chu Yang's throat was constantly moving as he watched, and he kept swallowing his saliva. Perfect, simply perfect. Chu Yang could not help but take another look. Her figure was extremely good, and her curvy figure was very tall. Even if she was standing in a group of beauties, her charm was extremely outstanding. That kind of brilliance could not be concealed. It was as if no matter how many people there were, her brilliance would still stand out. A crane in a flock of chickens. Among a group of beautiful women, she was a crane in a flock of chickens. It was as if Chu Yang's gaze had violated her. She coldly snorted and the sword in her hand released a cold light. Soon after, sword chi pierced through Chu Yang. At the same time, the jade-white sword in her hand shot towards Chu Yang like a bolt of lightning. Fuck your grandpa. Yours truly only took a look and you want to kill me? Chu Yang would not be able to withstand it and would immediately die. Especially now that Chu Yang was kneeling on the ground and begging for mercy from his sister-in-law, it would be even more difficult to avoid it. In an instant, he could almost smell the scent of death. This woman's swordsmanship was extremely shocking. Whoosh! Chu Yang almost passed through his sister-in-law's crotch. He stuck close to his sister-in-law's leg and darted over like a scorpion. This time, he was like a scorpion that suddenly burrowed into the sand. After burrowing for a distance, he suddenly pierced out. He really was like a living scorpion. Aoshue, don't do anything. He is my savior. Once his sister-in-law spoke, this bullshit woman only stopped and did not apologize. Chu Yang's anger immediately surged. Bastard, I almost lost my life and she did not even apologize. That woman, are you retarded or sick? Chu Yang cursed loudly. What's wrong with taking a look at you? Do you think you can casually kill someone with that little beauty of yours? Why don't you take a piss first and look in the mirror to see your dead face? Are you a saintess? Are you a demoness? Here it comes again. When his sister-in-law heard this, she was too familiar with this line. Those 7 or 8 girls who were more delicate than flowers at the side couldn't help but be stunned. There was actually someone who dared to say such vulgar words to junior sister Aoshue. Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself in the mirror first and look at your dead face? Chapter 218. Are you a goddess? Are you a witch? Fuck you. Chu Yang glanced at her chest and said disdainfully, it's said that women have big breasts but no brains. Not only do you not have breasts, you also have no brains. Don't you think before you do anything? You even want to kill such a handsome and righteous person like me. Don't you think you're stupid? No breasts, that was a complete lie. All the girls were speechless. If junior sister Aoshue didn't have breasts, who would have breasts? As for the handsome and righteous person, they didn't see him at all. This woman's eyes turned cold, as if a layer of frost had formed, scaring Chu Yang so much that his heart jumped. He had been scolding her to his heart's content just now, but now that she revealed her aura, Chu Yang immediately realized that this woman was at least in the ascending soul tier, and was shocked. No wonder he almost didn't manage to dodge that sword just now. Murder, murder. Without waiting for her to make a move, Chu Yang had already screamed like a ghost. Like a bolt of lightning, he hid behind his sister-in-law with a swoosh sound. Senior Marshal sister, you're a gentle and virtuous woman. Save me. The sister-in-law that Chu Yang was talking about already had black lines on her forehead, and she rebuked angrily, stop messing around, or I'll break your legs. At the same time, she sent him a secret sound transmission. Don't mess around, the matter between me and your big brother has nothing to do with junior sister Aoshue and the others. I just don't want too many people to know about this, or else, these women were all gossipers, and once they said anything, his big brother would be in danger. Chu Yang understood what she meant, and his sister-in-law obviously felt his enmity towards that dog's hit Aoshue. Yes, senior sister. When Chu Yang became serious, he looked just like a fine young master. Compared to his previous behavior, it was like heaven and earth. This made all the women present feel amazed. Give me back my storage ring. The moment his sister-in-law stretched out her hand, Chu Yang immediately denied it. Senior sister, I didn't take your storage ring. You're a body cultivator, but don't even think about the medicinal ingredients inside. Take those medicinal ingredients back to concoct pills. Chu Yang's eyelids twitched. His sister-in-law looked like a fool who had been drugged, but her eyes were very sharp. She instantly saw that he was a body cultivator. He reluctantly handed over his storage ring. Also, that joy pill, hand it over to me. Chu Yang jumped. The joy pill was a good thing. He shouted, Senior sister, you're going too far. This is my spoils of war. Hand it over. Yes. Chu Yang's weak and aggrieved appearance made the girls at the side want to laugh. His sister-in-law didn't know whether to laugh or cry when she saw his expression. She tossed him a porcelain bottle. There's a turtle longevity pill here that can increase your lifespan by 100 years. It's most suitable for you. 100 years of lifespan. Thank you, senior sister. Senior sister's magic power is boundless and omnipotent. You are as beautiful as the heavens. Chu Yang instantly beamed with joy. The girls at the side couldn't help but laugh. He was so aggrieved just a moment ago, but now he was acting like this. Xiaolan, go and inform Uncle Li. Ask him to flatten the general's residence for me. His domineering sister-in-law. Chu Yang immediately remembered the only son of the general's residence that he had stuffed in a corner. He then looked at the prideful woman who was still staring at him coldly. It seemed that her anger hadn't subsided and she wanted to teach him a lesson. I'll teach you a lesson first. He directly took the only son of the general's residence from the corner and said to her, Junior sister, I usually don't keep my mouth shut. I've offended you just now, so I'll give you a gift as an apology. When his sister-in-law heard this, she knew that something bad was going to happen. Sure enough, Chu Yang tossed the person over. With a whoosh, he fled through the door. A 5-colored cloud appeared under his feet, and he disappeared in an instant. He fled far away. From afar, he heard a woman's scream piercing through the night sky. It was incomparably clear. One could imagine the woman's reaction at this moment. After all, he was a big loach that was thrown over. It was slippery. Hee. Chu Yang laughed sinisterly. Little girl, I can't teach you a lesson. Chapter 219. Pauper, a pauper from head to toe. In the dark of the night, Chu Yang found a secluded place and began to count the spoils of war. When he checked the storage ring of the only son of the general's residence, he almost couldn't help but curse out loud. He despised him to the extreme in his heart. What only son of the general? There's almost nothing in his storage ring. Anyway, there's nothing that Chu Yang likes. Forget it, forget it. In the end, I am saving my future sister-in-law. Of course, there was also the tortoise longevity pill. Chu Yang had already taken out the porcelain bottle. He had never heard of the tortoise longevity pill, but a pill that could increase one's lifespan by 100 years was somewhat unimaginable. His sister-in-law was quite generous. In any case, she will be my future sister-in-law. If I owe her, then so be it. Chu Yang threw away the distracting thoughts in his mind. He opened the porcelain bottle and took out the tortoise longevity pill. In a flash, a bright light was released, illuminating the surrounding darkness and driving it far away. At this moment, it seemed as if Chu Yang had simultaneously formed the spirit pearl seal and the treasured vase seal. The turtle longevity pill was formed from the spirit pearl seal, and the treasured vase seal was formed from the treasured vase seal. At this moment, the tortoise longevity pill was truly like a spirit pearl. It was also like the sun rising from the east. Its appearance was due to the pill's aura. In a flash, it turned into a cloud of mist that pervaded the air. Chu Yang inhaled the mist into his nose. In a flash, his mouth and nose were filled with a fragrance. The mist fell on his body and immediately seeped into his muscles, making him feel as if he had become a feather and become an immortal. His feet seemed to be floating from the ground. The fragrance completely penetrated into his spirit. His spirit power increased, and he could faintly feel it. In the end, what was the ingredient used to refine this tortoise longevity pill? It is actually so amazing. Chu Yang's eyes widened like a pair of ox's eyes. His mouth was also wide open. He simply couldn't believe it. The medicinal properties of this tortoise longevity pill were too amazing. Just the pill's aura was so rich, and its effect was even more amazing. The pill's aura can even increase spirit power. This pill's aura must not be wasted. Whoosh! Chu Yang operated the Overlord's secret art. He suddenly opened his mouth and inhaled. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew and the surrounding air seemed to be swallowed into his stomach. Then, he swallowed the tortoise longevity pill. Using his inner vision, he saw that after the pill entered his stomach, a thick white fog was released. Guo Chen, who was slowly decomposing, released a dazzling light, illuminating Chu Yang's entire body. This light was extremely gentle. When it shone on his flesh, All the pores on Chu Yang's body seemed to open up like a flower. The mist seemed to permeate every inch of his body with the light, and was absorbed by his flesh and blood. His body began to slowly evolve and transform. The process of absorbing the pill could be said to be a process of supreme delicacy. It was an absolute enjoyment. The medicinal power was fragrant, sweet, mellow, gentle, and full of endless vitality. Wave after wave of warmth spread throughout his body, penetrating into his internal organs, deep into his bones, integrated into his blood vessels, and stimulated every cell in his body. It seemed to have awakened all the sleeping cells. The medicinal power released by the pill was very mysterious. Chu Yang only felt that this pill seemed to have been prepared for him. Once the medicinal power came into contact with his flesh and blood, it would be absorbed in an instant. There was almost no interval in between. Flesh and blood, internal organs, bones, tendons, the medicinal power even directly penetrated into the deepest part of his body, the marrow, and the spirit. Whether it was the spirit or the body, the medicinal power seemed to be everywhere. At this moment, Chu Yang felt as if he was bathing in steaming hot water in the cold winter. His whole body was comfortable, and almost intoxicated. Chapter 220. The scene was a little mystical. He seemed to be an extremely filthy thing that was being washed in water, and also seemed to be expelling poison. Chu Yang suddenly operated the Overlord's arts with all his might. The speed at which his body absorbed the medicinal strength increased again. Soon after, his organs, bones, and flesh became transparent, and actually shone brilliantly. Rumble. A thunderous sound came from within his body. This was the sound of his bones and organs vibrating, causing his blood to surge and wash through his body. Together with the rhythm of his flesh, blood, and veins, his entire body resonated with him. The thunderous sound grew louder and louder, and the vibration of his bones became even more intense. It was as if a piece of iron was being hammered and tempered, emitting a dazzling light. His bones became even whiter and purer, like suet jade. Within his bones, his bone marrow blazed with auspicious light. In an instant, all of his bone marrow was like a huge dragon waking up, continuously strengthening. It increased 10 times, 100 times, and also shook violently. His bone marrow was already creating new blood to replace the old blood. Chu Yang's transformation was too astonishing. The radiance in his body had become even more dazzling. No more black gas was being expelled from the 3,650 pores on his body. Only a small amount of sticky substance was being expelled. Soon, there was a layer of indescribable substance on his body. It seemed to be the discharge of impurities, or the birth of new blood, and the discharge of old blood. His entire body was thoroughly tempered. This tortoise longevity pill, what level is it? Ascending soul tier? I'm afraid it's even higher. Chu Yang's mind trembled. The medicinal strength was still seeping into his flesh, veins, organs, and bone marrow. The light around his body became even more dazzling, like a small sun rising in the dark night. Bang, bang, bang. The vibration of his body became louder and more rhythmic. His organs and blood were all sparkling and translucent, and there was a very dazzling luster on his bone marrow. His flesh and blood seemed to be cast from divine gold, and there was a trace of firm and immortal aura spreading out from his body. Rumble. Suddenly, Chu Yang's dantian seemed to have collapsed along with the resonance of his flesh and blood. The real qi in his body seemed to have been completely swallowed into his body. Suddenly, his whole body started to emit wisps of white gas. At the same time, true qi gushed out of his body. No, it should be true essence. When the soul resided in the body, the true qi was sucked into the body and completely absorbed by the body. It was equivalent to fusing with the soul in the body and finally forming true essence. This kind of true essence was actually the best, most perfect, and most supreme true essence. Compared to the true essence formed by the fusion of true qi and martial spirit, it was at least a lot better. After all, martial spirit was ultimately inferior to a person's own divine spirit. This was also the reason why Chu Yang had infused his true qi with his martial soul to form true origin even after he had connected the heaven and earth bridges. After the heaven and earth bridges had been connected, his strength had increased, and he could convert his true essence at any time, so he naturally wanted to do it as perfectly as possible. When the sky had already turned white, the medicinal efficacy had completely dissipated, and the true qi in his body had also completely transformed into true essence. At this moment, he suddenly felt very full, and even had a feeling of being stuffed. This was a sign that his vitality had reached the pinnacle and was about to overflow. Boom! Chu Yang smashed his fist on the ground, and suddenly, a flying dragon and 2 elephant phantoms appeared behind him. The strength of 1 dragon and 2 elephants, my strength has increased by so much. If I used the 3rd cycle of the primitive martial technique, wouldn't I have the strength of 3 dragons and 6 elephants? Even if Chu Yang didn't have a monster core now, killing Zhao Meng and Song Lai was just a matter of raising his hand. There was no need for him to fight as hard as before. At the same time, Chu Yang also discovered that after his physical body had strengthened, the talent he had obtained from the monster core had also increased. The physical body is indeed my bottleneck, my biggest shortcoming. Haha, 5 Elements sect, your Grandpa Chu is coming. After this night's breakthrough, his strength had increased greatly. He was now more confident in facing all kinds of situations that could happen in the 5 Elements sect. Chapter 221. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. The 5 Elements sect was already bustling with activity. The 5 Elements sect was spread all over the Wei nation and even the various martial academies in the eastern wilderness continent. There were no less than 100 of them, and all of them had arrived. There were also many geniuses from the eastern wilderness continent and countless martial artists who came to participate in the entrance examination. At this moment, the 5 Elements sect was already crowded with people. This is the 5 Elements sect. In 7 days, Chu Yang crossed Fallen Dragon City, Sunset City, and then sprinted south and finally arrived at the 5 Elements sect. He looked at the 5 Elements sect from dozens of miles away. It was as if he was in the Coiling Dragon mountain range. There was an endless mountain range that towered into the clouds and seemed to connect with the sky. Dense fog lingered, making the place look like a paradise. The mountain peaks rose and fell. Amidst the lingering fog, there were many waterfalls flowing down. It was as if the Milky Way had fallen from the 9 heavens. On top of it, pavilions, and palaces were scattered all over. They were perfectly embedded and merged with the mountains. The most spectacular thing was that in the deepest part, many mountain peaks could be faintly seen floating in mid-air like white clouds. There were many palaces that were like cities. It's truly magnificent, majestic, and magnificent. Even though Chu Yang had seen many big cities in his previous life, he was still shocked by the magnificent scene in front of him. As for the Coiling Dragon Town and the Coiling Dragon Martial Academy, if compared to the 5 Elements sect, it was like a small stone compared to a mountain. It was no wonder that countless people yearned for this place. This place was like a paradise on earth, the center of martial arts cultivation. Such rich heaven-earth yuan qi. Although Chu Yang was dozens of miles away, Chu Yang could feel the rich heaven-earth yuan qi when he lightly inhaled. Amidst the wind that blew against his face, the yuan qi also seemed to hit his face. It felt as if he could reach out and grab it. It made him feel as if all the meridians in his body were opened and he felt extremely comfortable. I heard that the location of a big sect is extremely meticulous. Wherever it is located, there will definitely be spirit veins like dragons underground. I'm afraid this saying is true. Chu Yang sighed in amazement. In addition to the remodeling of the sect, who knew how many spirit veins there were under the 5 Elements sect? Who knew how many great formations there were? Cultivating here would definitely be twice the result with half the effort. At this moment, Chu Yang finally understood why so many people would rather be a servant in the 5 Elements sect than head to the 5 Elements sect. It was because there were many opportunities and opportunities. Putting everything else aside, just this kind of cultivation environment alone would greatly increase the chances of reaching the Qi Soul realm even if one's aptitude was slightly lacking. And if they were talented, they would be able to break through very quickly. How long would they be able to stay as odd job workers? Chu Yang felt that if he had been in the Five Elements sect in the past, he probably wouldn't have been able to reach the third rank of the primitive martial realm. With such a cultivation environment and his destiny twin's martial spirits, he would definitely have been able to easily cultivate to the peak of the 9th level of the primitive martial realm. He might even have broken through to the Chi Soul realm early on. Each has its own pros and cons. I need to be vigilant and not blindly break through. Perhaps he was the only one who had such thoughts. For others, they probably wouldn't even think about reaching the third rank of the primitive martial realm because it was simply impossible. The poor get poorer and the rich get richer. This principle is also applicable in the martial world. In a place like the Five Elements sect, all the martial Dao resources were integrated and the competition was extremely intense. Many martial Daos clashed here, so the increase in strength would definitely be very high. Compared to other places, it was unknown how much faster it would be. Only by rising up here could one be considered a true person above others. The current Chu Yang seemed to have passed the college entrance exam and entered a famous university. He had yearning, longing, and pressure. He could completely imagine how many geniuses and monsters there would be in the Five Elements sect. Geniuses from the Great Wei country and even the Eastern Wilderness would probably be gathered here. There would be a large number of them. No wonder Big Brother couldn't instantly recover his confidence after the setback and even broke his promise to sister-in-law. It's already impossible to become a person above others in such a place. Once we leave the Eastern Wilderness, we'll reach the Sky Academy. Sky Academy, Eastern Continent, what kind of scene would it be? Chapter 222. However, the first thing he had to do was to find the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution and find out where his fellow disciples were. In such a place, he was actually very worried about his violent sister, Chu Na. The strength of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution was too weak in such a place. Any random person would be able to crush the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. Junior brother, are you a disciple from the various martial institutions? Whoosh. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew past. A huge demonic bird appeared in the sky and stopped above Chu Yang. A meatball-like youth stood on it, smiling like a smiling Metria. That's right. Chu Yang instantly sized up this smiling Metria. He was at least in the ascending soul realm, but he was incomparably amiable. Junior brother is indeed talented. You're already a Chi Soul realm expert at such a young age. Moreover, you're also a Chi Soul cultivator. Truly amazing. Smiling Metria said, I'm Cao Ju. How should I address you, junior brother? Chu Yang greets senior brother Cao. When Chu Yang heard Cao Ju's words, he couldn't help but be shocked. Was everyone's eyesight so sharp? Previously, she was his future sister-in-law. Now, she had just met a disciple of the Five Elements sect and had easily seen through his background. Whoosh. Perhaps because of the pressure Chu Yang felt, the celestial myriad millstone in his body instantly teleported and directly entered the spiritual mystic realm that he had opened. It even directly entered the desolate world in his spiritual world. At this moment, Cao Ju seemed to have vaguely sensed something. He was very surprised. Shortly after, he realized that Chu Yang's aura had suddenly converged. Originally, there were countless faint lights emitting from Chu Yang's body. However, everything disappeared in an instant. In just a blink of an eye, Cao Ju looked at Chu Yang again. He actually couldn't see through Chu Yang's cultivation. It was as if Chu Yang was only in the origin martial realm, or even an ordinary person. He couldn't even tell that Chu Yang was in the Chi Soul realm, let alone that Chu Yang was a physique cultivator. He's definitely a genius. Just by pointing out his cultivation base, he was able to see through everything in an instant and restrain his aura. Cao Ju was amazed. There were very few people like this. One's aura was not something that could be restrained just because one wanted to. Moreover, Chu Yang had done it so perfectly. It could be said to be flawless. He couldn't help but say, Junior brother Chu, that's a little scary. Senior martial brother Cao, you are not a woman. Even if you were a woman, you would be a fat woman. Senior brother, if you were a great beauty, junior brother would accept it. Unfortunately, senior brother is not only not a beauty, but also a man. Chu Yang joked, "That's why I, your junior brother, have to pay attention to propriety. Since you know you're not wearing clothes, you naturally have to put them on. Otherwise, you'll be walking the bird all day." Walking the bird? Ha ha ha. Cao Ju couldn't help but laugh. "Junior brother Chu, it seems you're a kindred spirit. I'll consider you a friend." At that moment, Chu Yang laughed and chatted. He found out that the Five Elements sect had specially opened up 4 regions for the various martial institutions: East Martial Institution, West Martial Institution, South Martial Institution, and North Martial Institution. The martial institutions were originally located in that direction. After arriving, they would gather at the 4 martial institutions according to their own location. The Coiling Dragon Martial Institution was in the east. Everyone from the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution was naturally in the East Martial Institution. "Junior brother Chu, since you're from the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution, you're heading to the East Martial Institution." Cao Ju laughed and said, "Come up, I'll give you a ride. Then I'll have to thank Senior Martial Brother Cao. I'm not a bird after all. It's ridiculous to flap my wings all day long." Ha ha. Cao Ju laughed again. "Junior brother Chu, you don't have a sense of direction. You don't have to hide it. I, your senior martial brother, can see that you're asking me to lead the way. Senior martial brother is like a heaven-defying martial prowess. You know everything above the heavens and below the earth. Junior martial brother's admiration. My respect to Senior Martial Institution. Cao Ju." Chapter 223. Senior brother, are you intoxicated by your own ego? Do you want me to add a little more fuel to the fire? Chu Yang had already jumped onto the back of the demon bird. He had never ridden such a thing before, so he didn't know the precautions. However, as soon as he landed on the back of the demon bird, he seemed to have become one with the demon bird. "Junior brother, I found out that you're a bastard. I'm a little envious now." Cao Ju was shocked. He had spent a lot of effort to achieve this. Originally, when he had his own ride, in order to fly steadily at high speed, he had to emit zhenqi from the soles of his feet to firmly attach to the back of the demon bird. Cao Ju was certain that Chu Yang was far more extraordinary than what he had sensed. This was the talent that Chu Yang obtained from swallowing the demon core from the eagle. At this moment, he was an eagle, a demon bird. Chu Yang understood and smiled. "Senior brother Cao, according to what you said, I'm afraid you'll feel inferior when you see me in the future." Cao Ju couldn't help but curl his lips. "Junior brother, you're the same as that birdman. If you two see each other, you'll probably wear the same pair of pants." Humans were so strange. Some people could get along very well. Chu Yang felt that Cao Ju and himself were getting along very well. The two were very familiar with each other. "Senior brother Cao, I want to make a serious statement." Chu Yang pretended to be serious. "My orientation is very normal. I'm only interested in women. As for wearing the same pair of pants as a man, if senior brother has such a hobby, I can understand. I promise I won't discriminate against senior brother. You're the one with an abnormal orientation. You can even draw out such a profound principle from such a bullshit sentence." Cao Ju couldn't help but size up Chu Yang, then said, "You really are a bitch. Not everyone can be a bitch. I think senior brother has to work hard. I hope senior brother won't stop on this path. Try to catch up as soon as possible. Don't be so bad that you can't even eat junior brother's dust." The two of them chatted and laughed. The demon bird flapped its huge wings and flew into the clouds. The speed of the demonic bird was extremely fast. It didn't take long for it to reach the Five Element sect and enter the mountain range of the Five Element sect. Looking down, the visual impact was even more shocking. The Five Element sect was really full of experts. With just a casual glance, one could see a Chi Soul Realm martial artist. It could be said that there were as many Chi Soul Realm martial artists as there were dogs. In the entire Five Element sect, there were 5 mountain peaks. They were extremely majestic, and they were like 5 white cranes standing out from a flock of chickens. On top of those 5 mountain peaks, there were countless palaces that resembled stars. In addition to the 5 mountains, there were 10 other mountains. After Cao Ju's explanation, Chu Yang found out that the 5 mountains were the 5 main mountains of the 5-element sect, and the 10 secondary mountains were the 10 branch mountains of the 5-element sect. The first 5 mountain ranges were the orthodoxy formed by the 5 great disciples of the first patriarch, and the latter 10 mountain ranges were the orthodoxy formed by the disciples nurtured by the 5 great disciples. Each of the 5 main mountains had a seat of honor. In the center of the seat, there was a floating palace. That was the 5-element Grand Hall, where the sect master of the 5-element sect resided. The 5 first seats and the sect master of the 5-element sect were the true rulers of the 5-element sect. They controlled the life and death of everyone in the 5-element sect. In the 5-element sect, other than the outer disciples, inner disciples, core disciples, and then there were the true disciples, saint sons, and saintesses. If one wanted to freely enter the 5 main mountains, one had to be at least a core disciple. In other words, Chu Yang didn't even have the qualifications to enter the 5 main mountains, let alone the 5-element Grand Hall. The 10 mountain peaks outside the 5 main peaks were actually where all the complicated affairs of the 5-element sect were handled. Only the more important decisions or matters that were difficult for them to handle would be reported to the 5 first seats and the sect master of the 5-element sect. From Cao Ju's explanation, Chu Yang understood that the true disciples of the 5-element sect were the minority. Behind them were the inner disciples and core disciples, and there were at least 100,000 of them. Naturally, the outer disciples were the majority. According to Cao Ju, there were at least 300,000 outer disciples. In other words, the entire 5-element sect had a total of 500,000 people. After listening to this data, Chu Yang finally had a comprehensive understanding of the 5-element sect's overall strength and strength. The 5-element sect was a colossus. If one were to compare from the perspective of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution, the experts here were as numerous as dogs. No, it should be said that the experts here were as numerous as the sand in the Ganges River. Any one of them would be able to deal with the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. Chapter 224. The East Martial Institution was situated on a mountain peak. This mountain peak might be spacious, but it was rather remote. The mountain peak was filled with dazzling buildings that could accommodate many people from the East Martial Institution. The Coiling Dragon Martial Institution was naturally among them. It was located in a remote location because the 5-element sect was taking care of the other martial institutions. Otherwise, they would definitely be bullied if they were to be together with the 5-element sect's disciples. There were countless examples like this in the past in the 5-element sect. It was because of this incident that the 5-element sect specially established the East, West, South, and North martial institutions. Chu Yang bid farewell to Cao Ju and inquired about the location of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. He walked up the stairs from the foot of the mountain and soon arrived at the courtyard where the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution was located. Before he arrived, the clamor had already entered Chu Yang's ears. He instantly frowned. Over the years, this has been the place where our Coiling Dragon Martial Institution stayed in the 5-element sect. What right does your Luo Yun Martial Institution have to seize our place? Wasn't the Luo Yun Martial Institution in Luo Yun City? It seems like I have some fate with this Luo Yun City. Previously, I killed the son of the Luo Yun City Lord in Fallen Dragon City. It seems like I will have to kill a few more today. Chu Yang recognized the angry voice from before. It was the voice of the senior sister of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution, Wang Xiaoman. He. A loud and mocking voice said, "Coiling Dragon Martial Institution, you country bumpkins. Since you want to know what right do we have, I will simply tell you what right do we have. Just because we have more people and you have less than 50 people. What right do you have to occupy so many courtyards? You country bumpkins should just dig a hole and live in it. It is more suitable for you. That's right. These country bumpkins don't know what they are talking about. How can they occupy such a courtyard? Ridiculous. Haha. The Luo Yun martial institution's disciples burst into laughter. They didn't put the coiling dragon martial institution in their eyes. You better think carefully. This courtyard was given to our coiling dragon martial institution by the five-element sect. If you are stubborn, don't blame us for being impolite. It was the voice of Chu Yang's sister, Chu Na. Hehe, you're welcome. The loud voice said again, little miss, I want to see how you're going to be so rude. Senior Marshal Brother Zhong, don't break this little girl. Don't be so happy, we brothers are very thirsty right now. Isn't that so? This little naughty girl is so pretty. I reckon that water can be squeezed out of her white skin. Don't even think about it. I'll be the one to go first. The loud voice became even more wretched as he laughed sinisterly. Do you think only you have eyes? Originally, I just wanted to eat alone. All the disciples of the Luo Yun martial institution burst into laughter. Chimph, you don't know what's good for you. How dare you flirt with senior sister Chu? I reckon you bastards won't even know how you died. They must be blind. Do they really think that our coiling dragon martial institution is a pushover? They actually dared to bully us at our doorstep. If anything were to happen to us today, it would still be fine. If senior sister Chu dares to humiliate us, I dare to guarantee that none of you from the Luo Yun martial institution will survive. In the courtyard, Li Hao sneered and pointed at the people of the Luo Yun martial institution. Clang! There was the sound of a sword. Ji Jingcheng had already drawn his sword and said, Why are you talking so much to this bunch of bastards? I just want to test the sharpness of my sword. So what if you are in the Chi Soul realm? A bunch of blind bastards. How dare you flirt with our martial institution's junior sister and senior sister in front of us? Do you think we don't have a handle in our pants? Chapter 225. This wide-mouthed youth was the loud-mouthed senior brother Zhong. When he saw that the coiling dragon martial institution was infuriated, he couldn't help but sneer, It is your honor that we have taken a fancy to your girls. Ridiculous. Senior brother Zhong, why are you wasting your breath on a bunch of country bumpkins? They will know fear after killing a few of them. Chimph, do they really think that the Five Elements sect will back them up after killing a few of them? Boom. Both parties instantly made their moves. Instantly, the sound of weapons clashing was heard. The air was stirred up as dust swirled in the air. Chu Yang had arrived a long time ago. He wanted to see how the disciples of the martial courtyard were doing. He wanted to see if they were united enough. At the same time, he wanted to give them some experience. However, at this moment, a painful scream entered his ears. Chu Yang's complexion couldn't help but change. Senior sister Chu. Senior sister, are you alright? At the same time, the coiling dragon martial institution's disciples couldn't help but exclaim. Chu Na was defeated too quickly and was sent flying the moment she made her move. They were all shocked and hurriedly retreated to Chu Na's side to protect her. Among the coiling dragon martial institution's disciples, only Li Hao, Chu Na, and Zhong Tian had stepped into the Chi Soul realm during this period of time. Furthermore, it wasn't very stable. The Luo Yun martial institution's disciples were different. There were at least 2 disciples in the second layer of the Chi Soul realm. The difference in strength between the two was too great. You guys have won. This place is yours. Li Hao spoke and made the decision. The coiling dragon martial institution admitted defeat. Chimph, do you think such a casual sentence is enough? The wide-mouthed youth sneered and pointed at Chu Na and Wang Xiaoman. Leave the 2 of them for us to play with. After that, all of you will lie on the ground and bark like a dog. Zhong Feng, don't go overboard. So what if I go overboard? The wide-mouthed youth, Zhong Feng, sneered, I am going to bully your coiling dragon martial institution today. What can you guys do? The most powerful one among you is only at the first layer of the Chi Soul realm. You guys won't even be able to withstand a single blow from me, you dogs. I want to use this courtyard. This is your honor. How dare you bark at me? Haha. Everyone from the Luo Yun martial institution burst into laughter and ridicule. Senior brother Zhong is right. Our Luo Yun martial institution is using this courtyard because we think highly of this bunch of country bumpkins. Ridiculous. A mere coiling dragon town wants to challenge our Luo Yun city? Everyone from the Coiling Dragon martial institution was infuriated. Zhong Tian spoke furiously. Aren't you afraid that the Five Elements sect will pursue this matter? Investigate. Zhong Feng sneered. I merely killed a few pieces of trash. The Five Element sect is wasting its time on trash like you. That's right. Is the Five Elements sect wasting its time on trash like you? When I think about it, I feel that it is very true as well. Thus, I feel at ease now. Suddenly, a voice intervened from the side, instantly attracting everyone's attention. Who are you? It should be another country bumpkin. When the Luo Yun martial institution saw this person, his tone was neither yin nor yang, and his words were filled with ridicule and disdain. How could they not see the hostility? Junior brother Chu Yang. Li Hao's face lit up when he saw Chu Yang. It's Junior Chu. Senior brother Chu. Apart from Chu Yang, who else could it be? His sudden arrival and abrupt appearance made everyone from the Coiling Dragon martial institution overjoyed. They felt as though they had been rescued from a hopeless situation. As far as they knew, Chu Yang had yet to step into the Chi Soul realm. However, he was publicly acknowledged as the #1 expert in their hearts. In the Coiling Dragon's secret domain, he killed Song Hongtu, who was at the Chi Soul realm. When the Coiling Dragon martial institution rebelled, he almost single-handedly annihilated the Zhao clan. Finally, he single-handedly annihilated the entire Azure Dragon School. It was because Chu Yang wasn't at the Chi Soul realm that he appeared even more shocking and frightening. The Luo Yun martial institution before them was nothing compared to Song Lai and the others. They were dead for sure. Li Hao, Zhong Tian, Ji Jingcheng, and the other martial institution's disciples were now concerned about how Chu Yang was going to deal with the Luo Yun martial institution's disciples. They knew that Chu Yang wasn't someone easy to talk to, especially when it came to his enemies. Chapter 226. The reaction of the Coiling Dragon martial INSTI Tushan's disciples puzzled the Luo Yun martial INSTI Tushan's disciples. Not only were they overjoyed, but they also looked at them as though they were looking at dead people. Their gazes couldn't help but fall on Chu Yang. Could it be that the Coiling Dragon martial INSTI Tushan sent an expert? With just a glance, their expressions instantly turned cold. Chu Yang didn't reveal any powerful aura. He definitely wasn't a Chi Soul realm martial artist. He might not even be at the 9th level of the Origin martial realm. He might be even weaker. Oh my. Sure enough, a great figure came. I was so scared that I almost peed. Zhong Feng immediately put on a frightened look, which immediately caused the Luo Yun martial INSTI Tushan's disciples to burst into laughter. The commotion here had already attracted the disciples of the other martial INSTI Tushans of the East INSTI Tushan. Chu Yang frowned. These were all competitors. He didn't want to reveal too much of his strength, but he was afraid that it wouldn't work. The Coiling Dragon martial INSTI Tushan didn't have anyone to hold the fort. Anyone would probably bully them. No wonder Father and Uncle Li kept urging me to come. Chu Yang shook his head and smiled bitterly in his heart. This should have been Nangong Ying or Li Yu's job. They should have led the disciples of the martial INSTI Tushan to the Five Elements sect and protect the disciples. However, this job had fallen on him. Who was the one who injured my sister? Chu Yang ignored the Luo Yun martial INSTI Tushan's disciples and asked the Coiling Dragon martial INSTI Tushan's disciples. Junior brother Chu, it's him. It's Zhong Feng. Yes, it's this big mouth. He just said that he wanted to play with senior sister Chu and junior sister Xiaoman. The Coiling Dragon martial INSTI Tushan's disciples were all agitated as they angrily pointed at Zhong Feng. So what if it's me? Zhong Feng sneered at Chu Yang and said, hurry up and send your sister here for me to play with. Otherwise, I'll let you know what a eunuch is. Yes, hurry up and send your sister here for us to play with. Otherwise, we'll teach you how to respect us. The Luo Yun martial institution's disciples were clamoring, and many of them even ridiculed Chu Yang. What's this? Trash actually dares to come out. Country bumpkins just don't know how powerful they are. It is absolutely reasonable for us to look down on them. Playing with their women is definitely giving them too much credit. When the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution heard this, they were infuriated. Only Chu Yang was beaming with smiles. Eunuch, this is a good idea. After a pause, he spoke to the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. Quickly hide our martial institution's flower. It might be inappropriate later on. Yes, Senior Chu. Immediately, some disciples of the Martial Arts Institute took Chu Na and Wang Xiaoman away. You bastards, your suggestion just now was very good. Cut off the little cock in your pants and get lost. I won't repeat myself. As expected, the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution were instantly excited. That bastard. What did he say? You heard him clearly. Zhong Feng couldn't believe it. He even doubted his own ears. He looked at Chu Yang as if he was looking at a madman. Is there something wrong with your ears? Then I'll treat your ears. Chu Yang sneered. He took a step forward casually, but in an instant, he was in front of Zhong Feng. Then, he gave Zhong Feng a big slap. Pa, pa, pa. There was a series of crisp and continuous slapping sounds. Chu Yang's hand was the size of a praying mat as he slapped Zhong Feng violently. Zhong Feng still had an expression of disbelief. He couldn't dodge Chu Yang's sudden attack. Bang! Chu Yang's hand slapped heavily on Zhong Feng's face. Immediately, Zhong Feng let out a blood-curdling scream. His mouth was filled with blood and teeth as he was sent flying. The disciples of the Luo Yun Martial Institution were instantly stunned. Their mouths were wide open as they looked at this scene as if they had seen a ghost. Their opponent was just a trash. They were very clear about Zhong Feng's strength. He was a second-layer Qi Soul Realm expert, a rare genius expert of the Luo Yun Martial Institution. He was the supreme genius of the Luo Yun city. However, the scene in front of them was completely wrong. This country bumpkin, who was nothing in their eyes, just raised his hand and beat Zhong Feng like a dog. Zhong Feng couldn't even dodge and was slapped until all his teeth were knocked out. His eyes were swollen like balls, and his skin was sparkling as if it was going to burst open. When they looked at Chu Yang again, they saw that he looked relaxed as if he didn't even use any strength. Chapter 227. How is this possible? This is absolutely impossible. Many of the disciples of the Luo Yun Martial Institution were already drenched in cold sweat. They knew that they had met a genius, a true genius. On the other hand, the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution cheered. Chu Yang's strength had indeed become even more unfathomable. The disciples of the other martial institutions who were watching could not help but narrow their eyes. Their dangerous gazes fell on Chu Yang. They could not see through this person's strength, but a second-layer Qi Soul Realm martial artist was like a dog or a chicken in his hands. You. Zhong Feng looked at Chu Yang in disbelief. He still could not believe what was happening in front of him. It was as if he was in a dream and was suddenly awakened by a slap. Why is it so difficult for you to understand human language? Chu Yang slapped him again with lightning speed. Zhong Feng tried to dodge, but he couldn't. He was like a mouse hiding from a cat. No matter how hard he tried to dodge, he couldn't dodge. Chu Yang slapped him again and again, ruthlessly slapped him in the face. This scene made the disciples of the other martial institutions realize that the difference in strength between the two of them was too great. Although Zhong Feng was already at the second layer of the Qi Soul realm, he was still too weak in front of Chu Yang. Bastard, I'll kill you. Zhong Feng was extremely angry. He had been a genius since he was young and had received countless praises. Moreover, he had already achieved success at a young age and received the attention of countless people. When had he ever suffered such humiliation in front of others? He had already lost his mind. His eyes were bloodshot and filled with an ominous glint. He could not wait to tear Chu Yang into pieces. Bang! Zhong Feng fiercely stomped his feet, causing the ground to shake. With a clang, The long sword in his hand emitted a dazzling sword aura as it pierced towards Chu Yang at lightning speed. Just now, although Zhong Feng was unable to retaliate at all and had lost all face like a piece of trash, his strength was definitely not weak. He was indeed a true genius. In his rage, the strength of the second layer of the Chi Soul stage exploded out. Chu Yang sneered. His hand stretched out like a dragon's claw and instantly grabbed the sword. Clang! Clang! Dang! Chu Yang exerted his strength and broke the sword, piece by piece. He broke the long sword in Zhong Feng's hand. It was as if the long sword was nothing more than a withered branch to Chu Yang. The strength of a body cultivator wasn't only reflected in strength. After Chu Yang had swallowed the turtle longevity pill, his body had also become very tough. He could ignore ordinary swords and spears. He had already reached the level of Vajra unbreakable. These few moves of Chu Yang's had completely crushed all the swords and sword auras together. How is that possible? Zhong Feng couldn't believe it at all. He was dumbstruck as he looked at the remaining sword hilt in his hand and the pieces of broken sword on the ground. He was stupefied, and he couldn't see the slightest trace of arrogance and unbridled arrogance from before. Bang! Chu Yang's leg was like an azure dragon coming out of the abyss as he heavily swept Zhong Feng's waist. Bang! Zhong Feng was like a wooden stake that had been broken by the kick. He was sent flying while spurting out a mouthful of blood. He crashed into the disciples of the Luo Yun martial institution, and that terrifying force had caused them to spurt out blood incessantly. Now, all of you should be able to understand my words, right? Are you going to do as I say, or do you want me to do it personally? Chu Yang's cold eyes swept across the disciples of the Luo Yun martial institution. Instantly, they couldn't help but retreat. They were both shocked and furious, but they didn't dare to say anything. After all, Zhong Feng was beaten up like a dead dog. If they were to make a move, it would be even more miserable. However, if they were to castrate themselves, how could they do it? Where it is possible to make mistakes, one should be lenient. Don't go overboard. A courageous disciple of the Luo Yun martial institution spoke out. If you were to kill all of us, the Five Elements sect will definitely pursue the matter. Didn't you say that the trash Five Elements sect doesn't have the time to bother? I think what you said makes sense. Swish. When Chu Yang made his move, the two disciples who were speaking were lifted up by their necks and crushed to death. They were thrown to the ground with a bang that silenced the entire world. When he said he would kill, he really did it. He was straightforward and didn't have any trace of sloppiness. The spectating disciples of the other martial institutions couldn't help but be shocked. This is a ruthless person. He is killing people to establish his might. I won't say it a second time. Are you going to do it yourselves, or do you want me to kill all of you? Chapter 228. When the Luo Yun martial institutions group saw Chu Yang's extremely cold eyes, they were so frightened that they couldn't help but retreat. Soon after, they stopped and someone yelled out with anger, "This bastard is too much. Let's fight it out with him." When the surrounding crowd heard these words, they felt a little familiar. It seemed like the Coiling Dragon martial institutions group was like this earlier. CHMPH, the Luo Yun martial institution is asking for it. If they didn't go overboard, they wouldn't have fallen to such a state. This is definitely a warning. The Coiling Dragon martial institution cannot be provoked. This will be the outcome of whoever dares to provoke them. He is truly a ruthless person. Among the surrounding crowd, many of them understood Chu Yang's objective. He wanted to use the Luo Yun martial institution to intimidate all the other martial institutions. Anyone who dared to humiliate the Coiling Dragon martial institution would be returned with double the humiliation. He is just one person. He is definitely not a match for so many of us. That's right. He is just one person. So what if he is powerful? Kill. Even if he dies, it's just a small scar. Pong pong pong. The Luo Yun martial institution's most ferocious people instantly felt a figure shooting towards them. Shortly after, they couldn't feel anything. Their heads were slammed into their chests. As for the rest of the people who were hooting, None of them were able to escape. All of them were killed by Chu Yang. In an instant, many of them were killed on the spot. The Luo Yun martial institution's group was shivering with fear. Suddenly, everyone smelled a urine stench. When they looked over, they were surprised to see Zhong Feng. Zhong Feng, who pretended to be afraid and pissed his pants to mock Chu Yang, had actually pissed his pants. This trash. What qualifications does he have to call others trash? He is the biggest trash. Why is a coward pretending to be arrogant? He doesn't know his place and is truly ridiculous. Take a look at what the Luo Yun martial institution has taught. It is truly ridiculous. The surrounding crowd couldn't help but sneer. This Zhong Feng was so arrogant earlier. Who would have thought that he would be so scared that he pissed his pants? Little brother, stop. It's enough. When Chu Na came out to stop Chu Yang, all the disciples of the Luo Yun martial institution instantly looked at Chu Na with eager eyes, treating her as their savior. What are you worried about? This place is not suitable for you. Go back. How could Chu Yang not know what this violent elder sister was worried about? However, he didn't want to let this group of people from the Luo Yun martial institution go. It was fine if he didn't hear it, but if he didn't kill them after hearing it, he wouldn't be satisfied. Little sheep, are you rebelling? Chu Na took out her elder sister's pressure and directly grabbed Chu Yang's ear, causing Chu Yang to cry out in pain. This made everyone dumbfounded. Little sheep. This godlike guy was called Little Sheep. Even the Luo Yun martial institution's disciples couldn't help but have a strange look in their eyes. How could such a docile nickname like the Little Sheep be used on such a ferocious fellow? Ha ha. It was unknown who was the first to laugh out loud, but the surroundings instantly burst into laughter. This made Chu Na's face turn red. She had turned her younger brother into a joke. Soon after, she couldn't help but feel annoyed. If it wasn't for this little sheep, Chu Yang, being too stubborn, how could such a thing happen? Therefore, she couldn't help but increase the strength in her hand. Fine, fine, fine. I won't kill you. I won't kill you. Can you let go? Chu Yang's begging for mercy caused another burst of laughter. At this moment, his appearance didn't have the slightest bit of ruthlessness from before. When Li Hao, Ji Jingcheng, and the others saw Chu Yang acting like this, they couldn't help but laugh in their hearts. Perhaps only Chu Na could suppress Chu Yang. Why aren't you getting lost? Are you waiting to die? Chu Na shouted coldly, causing the disciples of the Luo Yun martial institution to instantly sober up. With a bang, they fled in all directions. However, they discovered that the fastest one to flee was actually Zhong Feng. Almost at the instant Chu Na spoke, Zhong Feng had already fled. If it wasn't for Chu Yang's ear being grabbed, how could Zhong Feng have escaped? Chapter 229. I've heard of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution, but I never expected that a small place like the Coiling Dragon Town would have such a person. Indeed, we can't underestimate him. The one who peed his pants is definitely not a weakling. His strength is at the second layer of the Chi Soul realm, but he was still beaten up like a dead dog and couldn't fight back at all. We have to be careful of this person. Someone will help us investigate this Chu Yang. The spectating disciples of the other martial institutions quickly dispersed in twos and threes. However, they had already noticed Chu Yang and were discussing among themselves. Chu Yang's perception was extremely sharp, and he heard many discussions about the Luo Yun martial institution. TSK, that's right. This time, our East Martial Institution is going to have a good show. Not only was the Luo Yun martial institution beaten up in a few moves, but they were also scared to the point of peeing their pants. If they don't get back their dignity, they will become a big joke. Who will respect them in the future? Don't underestimate the Luo Yun martial institution. Although the one who peed his pants is not weak, he is nothing compared to the real geniuses of the Luo Yun martial institution. That's true. I heard that an extraordinary genius has appeared in the Luo Yun martial institution this time. Not only is he gifted, but his cultivation level is also not low. He is at least at the third layer of the Chi Soul realm. What's his name again? Luo faming. Yes, that's Luo faming. It seems that the inner circle elders of the five-element sect are already paying attention to him. Hehe, this is going to be interesting. I am looking forward to the battle between Luo faming and Chu Yang. Let's see who is stronger between the two of them. Luo faming, third layer of the Chi Soul realm. He has already attracted the attention of the elders of the five-element sect. Chu Yang couldn't help but squint his eyes. He couldn't judge Luo faming's strength. As for the elders of the five-element sect, he didn't know how strong the so-called elders were. However, this Luo faming didn't seem to be too weak. After everything calmed down, Chu Yang wanted to check on his sister's injuries, but was rejected by her. He didn't care at first, but when he sensed it carefully, his eyes couldn't help but narrow. The old injuries haven't healed, but there are new injuries. Her old injury was extremely serious, and by the time Chu Yang discovered it, it had not fully healed. He could imagine how serious his sister's previous injury was. Chu Yang was at least 2 months late, which meant that the injuries on her body might not have healed in 2 months. His expression didn't change as he told Chu Na to go back and treat her injuries. After that, he didn't try to hide anything. His eyes were incomparably cold as he said to Li Hao, Zhong Tian, and Ji Jingcheng, speak. You should know what I want to hear. Li Hao and the other two had a complicated expression. It wasn't just because of Chu Yang's questioning, but also because of Chu Yang's current strength. Chu Yang had become even more powerful. If it was before, they could still see Chu Yang's realm, but now, they couldn't see through Chu Yang's cultivation at all. The only thing they could be sure of was that Chu Yang's strength had probably increased by a lot. I said that I can't hide anything from junior brother Chu. Ji Jingcheng smiled bitterly. Who was Chu Yang? Senior sister Chu was simply making things difficult for them if they wanted to hide anything from him. Li Hao and Zhong Tian also shook their heads and sighed. Junior brother Chu, since you've already seen through it, you should know senior sister's concerns. Concerns? What kind of joke was this? His sister was almost beaten to death, so what did he have to worry about? Chu Yang said coldly, are you going to say it yourselves, or do you want me to inquire about it myself? The three of them knew this would be the result. They sighed and said, it's because of the Luo Yun martial institution, that Luo faming you just heard about. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.